Okay, it's 5 o'clock. Welcome to Thursday, July 23rd, 2026, regularly scheduled City Council meeting. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Orbach.
Here.
Councilmember Westman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jensen.
Here.
And Mayor Morgan.
Here. Would you all join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to make two quick notes this evening. Our city manager is recovering from a knee surgery, so we have our lovely Director Khan sitting in for him this evening. And again, we do have a time-sensitive item, which is the 6:15 start for the districting. So we'll be as mindful as we can. We'll try not to get too jumbled, but just so everybody's aware, if we end up having to mix anything up, that is why. Are there any additions or deletions?
Staff does not have any deletions or additions to the agenda this evening.
So I had one I wanted to, I don't know if this is the time, but we have the item on our agenda for Bay Avenue tonight. And then we have coming up on our next agenda, the item for the Rule 20 money, which is again about Bay Avenue. And it seems to me it would make the most sense for us to talk about Bay Avenue all at once. So I was wondering if we could continue this item to our next meeting, so we just talk about the whole street at once. And I don't know if anybody else agrees with that. But
I will respectfully disagree, only because there's some things that we've talked about already that we want to see forward at the Bay Hill intersection that I think are kind of important to the community and the people that we've received funding from that.
So do we want to just talk about the Bay Hill and leave the Bay Cap Ave out tonight?
We could do that.
Okay, and then we can talk about Bay Cap Ave when we talk about the undergrounding. Okay, that works for me.
Okay. So we'll make a note. Item 9C, we will restrict to just the Bay Hill intersection. Okay.
Just so if there's somebody here for the other part, they don't.
Okay, and then we'll continue the Capitola till next time.
I guess we'll just note that would be, the conversation's always been that they're all kind of somewhat connected. So we could get educated on the Bay Hill, right? Perfect, thanks.
Okay. And on to item 3, presentations.
There are none for tonight's
Oh,
agenda.
I'm sorry. Okay. Report on closed session, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council met in closed session to discuss the one item listed on this evening's closed session agenda. Deliberation occurred, direction was given, no reportable action was taken, and that concludes my report.
Great. Additional materials?
Staff received additional materials related to item 6. One email was published after the agenda was originally published. For item 9B, 5 emails were shared after publication of the agenda packet. Item 9C, 1 email was received. All materials are available for public review online and in the back of the room.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 6, oral communications by members of the public. Anything that is not agendized this evening, you can comment on consent or anything not agendized. You'll have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. Heidi Kellison. I live in Capitola. I have a procedural request for the council, and that would be in reference to our first meeting in June, where a matter was held under parliamentary procedure. A motion was made, a second was made, and then a motion carried by a vote of 5-0. At the subsequent meeting, we learned that that item was still up for debate, and that surprised me. I learned that in the context of a staff presentation. So I would say that one of you had made a comment that the council is free to change its mind, and of course, I agree with that. But when a matter is so short and following a clear vote, I think the public has a right to know. And so what I suggest is that you should have a conversation around setting standards so that items like that would be explicitly agendized so that the public can follow along. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name is Goran Klapic. I'm former security guard of Zeldas on the beach. My point here is I'm accusing the city of Capitola of knowingly passing through cocaine trafficking back in the days when Andrew Daly made a significant arrest. He arrested Bill, the bodyguard for Patrick of Bay Bar. I had a talk with Andrew Daly. He was a great man. He made some arrests. At the moment right now, how it is in Capitola, I have a feud with some Capitola officers at the moment because they don't speak very well English when I call them about something. It's not only about cocaine or marijuana, it's also about prostitution. That's what also was going on back then. Sorry for being so upset.
Thank you. Would anybody else wish to speak for oral communications? All right, seeing none, we'll take it to staff comments.
We have several staff comments this evening, beginning with our city clerk.
Great.
I just wanted to remind the City Council and the public that we've entered the nomination period for the 2026 general election. We're about a week in. The deadline for members of the public to pool nomination paperwork, if they're interested in running for local office, is August 7th.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to announce for the public that for the month of August, we'll have a survey live on our webpage for the corridor study on 41st Avenue, Clare Street, and Capitola Road. We're also, during our City Council presentation previously, there was feedback that we needed to engage with the stakeholders. So postcards will be going out to property owners on the corridors, so on 41st Avenue, Clare Street, and Capitola Road along the area of the study. So it'll go from August 1st through the end of August, and look forward to getting feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following up, regarding community surveys, there was a request to add those to the front page of our website. We now have on our What's Happening area a link of all the outreach that we have going on. So it has links to all of our surveys, including that, the ATP, the Esplanade Park projects, and links directly to those project web pages. It can also be found under the department section of the website.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for that. I used it. I found it very helpful.
Thanks.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I just had some comments I wanted to make. As many of you know, so my name is Sarah. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Capitola. And as I'm sure most people know, we responded to a very tragic incident on Monday afternoon. So I just wanted to make some comments that on the behalf of every member of the Capitola Police Department who was very touched, we did a facilitated debrief today. I wanted to extend our deepest and most heartfelt condolences to the family and the loved ones of the victim from Monday's incident. None of our words can ease the pain of losing someone in such a sudden and senseless act of violence. Our thoughts remain with them as they begin to navigate this unimaginable loss. This tragedy has so deeply affected our entire Capitola community. I've had a lot of outreach through emails and messages coming my way. Incidents like this are difficult under any circumstances, but one that concerns like this that happens in broad daylight, a busy public area, leaves so many people feeling shocked, saddened, and unsettled. We recognize that community members, business owners, visitors, and those who witnessed or responded to this incident may all be experiencing a range of emotions. While no arrest can undo the harm that has been done, I just want our community to know that our officers, detectives, and law enforcement partners worked tirelessly to quickly identify, locate, and arrest the suspect on Monday. We remain committed to conducting a thorough investigation and pursuing justice for the victim and her family. Capitola has always been a close-knit community and a resilient community that I've had the pleasure of serving for over 20 years. In times like these, we lean on one another with compassion, kindness, and support. I encourage anyone struggling with the emotional impact of this incident to reach out to family, friends, or available support resources. Believe it or not, the police department can actually be a great conduit for things like that. Our department remains committed to protecting this community, supporting those affected, and maintaining transparency as the investigation moves through the criminal justice process. We ask that everyone continue to keep the victim's family in their thoughts and respect their privacy during this incredibly difficult time. So thank you for the support that we've received so far, and we're here. It's unexplainable, and it shouldn't be explainable and shouldn't be tolerated. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Anything else from staff? All right. We'll take it back to council. Any comments?
Yes, I would just like to echo what the chief said. You know, that Capitola is such a special place when something like this happens that affects the whole community. And our hearts go out to the family and the victims and the friends. So I'd like to keep everybody in mind. And in the world of law enforcement that I've worked in for a long time, something like this, when it happens, it's tough on everybody. I heard great things about Capitola PD and the whole incident and how it was handled. And that was the good of this horrible tragic. So thank you to the police department.
I want to also take a moment to express my deepest condolences to the family, friends, and all who knew and loved Rachel Summers. This sudden and senseless tragedy has left many in this community shaken, with feelings of fear, hopelessness, and helplessness. As a parent, it was a really scary moment for me to hear about the events as it was unfolding, knowing that my 4-year-old son was in the mall at the time. I want to thank our first responders for acting so swiftly and for ensuring that the safety of our community is always first. Sending my deepest gratitude to Chief Ryans for your leadership and for the entire PD staff for the difficult work you do every single day. In addition, I'd like to report that during the meeting on July 13th, the Metro Board voted not to put a Metro-sponsored measure on the ballot this November. Instead, we are supporting the Friends of Santa Cruz Metro on their Citizens Initiative to get the signatures needed to qualify for a ballot measure March of 2028. As of this week, we have already secured more than 13,000 signatures, and we're hoping to get another 1,000 more just to have a safe buffer in case there are errors. And just to recap for residents who may not have heard about this effort is to secure local funding to support public transit in Santa Cruz County with a 0.5-cent sales tax. The last time Metro asked for a local sales tax to support its services was in 1979, which is almost 50 years ago. Since then, the cost of operations, higher cost of fuel, as well as the rising cost of benefits and health insurance for our almost 400 staff have made it so that additional funding is needed to keep our current level of service. That's millions of rides a year. That's 30,000+ rides on Paracruz buses for our patients to get to clinics and where they need to be. Unlike many other transit districts that have failed to recover from COVID, Metro has seen a 70% increase in ridership since Reimagine Metro in 2023, and we are currently 10% above our pre-COVID levels. We have also seen a 500% increase in ridership in youth since the implementation of the Youth Cruise Free program, where all kids K-12 ride the bus for free. With this measure, we hope to continue to expand free service to seniors, people with disabilities, and low-income residents. Remember that every additional person on the bus is one less car on the road. And with every ride, Metro donates money to the Monterey Bay Marine National Sanctuary. I have some petitions at the back of the room that I brought today, and I hope you'll consider signing it. Every signature counts. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Comments?
First, I would like to thank our Chief of Police and our police department for the work they do in our community, and also extend our sympathy to Rachel Summers and her family for this tragedy that's happened. It's hard to put in words how it has affected our community, and I think you've done an amazing job leading us all through it. Thank you, Chief. I had one other sort of procedural item I wanted to bring up, and That was when we did our annual review of the city manager. The council appointed Mayor Morgan and I to be a subcommittee to work with the city manager. And we met with him on April 9th. And as a result of that meeting, we came up with a couple follow-up items to be taken care of. One was that we wanted to create a process where city employees could provide anonymous information to the city council. And the second was that we agreed that we would have a follow-up review, the first meeting in September, to go over that. So I wanted to get the meeting in September scheduled on our agenda. And also, we were going to work with the city attorney about coming up with a procedure that would work for the employees and for us, and wondered if it would be possible for him to work on that, or if he had any comments or ideas about how we could proceed with implementing that piece.
Thank you, Councilmember Westman. Yes, my office is available to assist with that effort as necessary.
Okay, thank you. And I, just one final thing. I think it would be important to get it done rather quickly, since we are going to do our follow-up interview the 1st of September. So we have time for, if someone wants to submit comments, they can. Thank you.
So noted. Thank you.
Is that just automatic?
I think that
it on.
prior authorization was provided through the creation of the subcommittee, so I will receive this as direction.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and just again to echo to our chief, thank you very much for your leadership. I was also wondering if you could also reach out to the other agencies that we so much appreciate, but we don't have direct access to. Sheriff's Department. I understand that, AMR, our fire department. Also, I think we'd like to reach out to some sort of, like to the mall security. I'm quite sure they were involved in stuff. And so we can just reach out, a thank you, and tell them that we appreciate what they did and what they're going through at the same time. We have direct access to you, but if you could be the liaison to that message, I think it'd be very much appreciated.
Thank you. Yes, I did actually distributed letters today, and we're doing a debrief with the mall actually on Tuesday, because there's a lot of learning to happen when we have to coordinate like that. The mall is obviously a very large property.
So just, and my condolences again to the family, but thank you for your leadership, and please pass that on. So moving on to business. One thing I also was looking forward to on our forecasting report that we, I think maybe in October-ish, we might be having an emergency plan update coming forward. I don't know if that's been exactly calendar, but I was wondering if one thing to make sure that would be included in that is, with this incident that happened, and especially understanding, is the roles and responsibilities of city staff on emergency disaster preparedness plan. The ones I've been involved with clearly delineate that. And so, directors, if they're here, they're not here, what roles they are, city manager, if they're in attendance or if they're not in attendance. And I just want to make sure that that's highlighted, and something that I'm quite sure you have included, and we work with, I think, Farley on that to make sure that that's included. So that'd be great. And then I think another thing, and just a question to you, maybe you could elaborate on, would just be, I understand you lost another police officer who moved on to another opportunity, and that you might potentially be down two. And I was wondering what impact, that has on your department, and how you plan to, facilitate that vacancy period, and with the constraints that you have.
Yes, we did say farewell to Officer Wes Martin, who moved to Georgia for a different opportunity. So we wish him well. So yes, in a small organization, being down 2 officers is significant when you have 22 sworn to support the city. So we're going to continue with our training directive, where we're not sending people to any non-mandatory training, because that affects staffing with backfilling positions, as well as looking at time off and not allowing more than one person to have time off, and we build our schedules and move people's shifts around, trying not to impact their days off, but they understand that their work days could be impacted with shift changes. So the operations captain and the sergeants have been working operationally to fill those gaps. We also have 2 people in backgrounds that I just, until they make it through, it's not a done deal, but they both come with their academy graduates, which saves us time in order of putting them on the street and putting them into our training program. So we've been anticipating, luckily, we've worked closely with our last officer that left for a different opportunity. So we've been able to track and get a couple of officers ready to hire here, hopefully very soon.
Just want, I think the council is very sensitive to just the things what your department's been through, that they need to have mental health, relief and stuff like that. So just stacking up extra more time and everything. So we appreciate all the extra hard work that they're doing, and you are. So thank you.
Great. Just a couple things. This Sunday is Wharf to Wharf. So come on out and cheer on the runners. Just remember there will be road closures. So FYI. And then today I was pleasantly surprised. I saw Kailash and some of our public works people doing some grassroots public outreach within Esplanade Park, talking about bicycle, pedestrian safety. And so I just think it's a shout out to showing how much work we're putting into really getting public input and really hitting all the marks there. And yes, I just want to take some time to honor Rachel Summers. And I know this has not been easy for our community, for our first responders, for her family, friends, coworkers. So before we begin any other items, I would like to take a moment of silence. If you can all just hold her in your hearts for a moment. Great. Thank you for joining in that. We will move on to item 8, which is our consent calendar. This can be enacted in one motion unless anything needs to be pulled. Or do you want to discuss?
I just have 2 comments.
2 comments? Okay, great. Yeah, go for it. And then we can maybe do it all in one.
First, thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Public Works Department for the writing the grant for the ADA accessibility for the wharf and also for the beach. I think that's going to be amazing to see that and their hard work to do that. And then also thank you to the PD for the grant that you guys wrote and obtained, for the cannabis tax grant. And I look forward to seeing the staff report. You said you'll be coming back and telling us how your department is going to look at how that money will be spent. And so just a big shout out, because those 2 grants, will affect the bottom line of our general fund. And so that extra work and stuff doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you for that. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Great points. Thank you.
I'll move consent items 8A to 8H.
I'll second it.
Great. First and a second. All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. We'll move us on to general government. We have some time for item 8A, 9A. Gosh, I'm getting all my numbers mixed up today. So tonight we're discussing a public art statue to honor the women of water. And we have Nikki.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So tonight's item is a public art item, a sculpture titled "To Honor the Women of Water." The recommended action is to approve the Art and Cultural Commission's recommendation for public artwork titled "To Honor the Women of Water" and direct staff to pursue a partnership with County Park Friends for a fundraising campaign and to fund fabrication and installation of the statue. So the city has received a public art application for a sculpture that is titled "To Honor the Women of Water." The sculpture has an established project team with an advisory council, and that there's already a fundraising plan for this sculpture. The artwork concept is a woman surfer that is intended to be a companion piece to the sculpture that is on the west side that is titled "To Honor Surfing." The estimated sculpture value is $350,000. The project lead, Carrie Lockhead, presented the application to the Art and Cultural Commission, and has with a target installation of fall of 2027. As I had said before, they intend to, this is a privately funded through fundraising campaign. This is an exciting opportunity because this would be the third woman surfer statue in the world. Capitola would host the third. There is an advisory council that has been established to help guide the project team. You'll note some notable names in this list, as well as the sculpture is going to be in the same hands as its companion on the west side. The two artists that were part of the original creation, Brian Curtis and Thomas Marsh, will be collaborating again for this sculpture. The team also has identified Allison Hobbs as the lead designer for the landscape architecture that will be part of the concept and the surrounding space for appreciation of the sculpture. Bob Pearson, who will be influencing the actual shape of the board and making sure that it is indeed a longboard. And then County Park Friends will be brought in as to help administer the fundraising aspects for the sculpture. I'll remind council and the public that the city has just started an Esplanade Park enhancement and adaptation project. The stakeholder and community outreach part of the process is already begun, and this will continue to, in order to address coastal hazards while also enhancing the park usability. The timeline for this project is actually in a very similar timeline as the sculpture. The city is planning to pursue implementation funding for this project in summer of 2027. So, considering that the Esplanade's future is being discussed at the moment, staff identified an interim location in order to allow for installation for the project that will be collaborative with the project team's fundraising plan as well as the timeline. And then, if needed, would be able to be modified for the park design if community engagement identifies a new location. Here on the slide, you can see that there, in that red circle, is the proposed interim location. What is currently in that spot right now is this interpretive signage, and you might notice that there is a spot on the signage that is already resting and actually has a hole. So this would eventually need to be replaced anyway due to age. So in this spot, as well as the surrounding area, would be redeveloped for the interim location for the proposed sculpture. I have a concept plan here for you. And I'll say again that this is a conceptual plan. There's still a lot of work that has to be done both with the city and the project team in order to actually have a more solid plan, but this is the direction that we're headed, where the curb would be redeveloped and there would be some introduction of landscaping in order to beautify the area, but as well providing a space, a little bit of a safety buffer between the edge of the curb and the sculpture in order to protect anybody that might be taking a photo opportunity of that sculpture. There is seating around the sculpture in order to allow members of the public to view and contemplate. And then on the other side, additional landscaping and seating that will allow individuals to sit and view the beach and the ocean or watch children playing on the nearby seals. But the landscaping provides a little bit of a barrier so that they're not accidentally photobombing. All right, in preparation for this meeting, as well as the Art and Cultural Commission meeting, there were several public notices that were sent out. And ultimately, the Art and Cultural Commission reviewed this project at the recent July 14th meeting, and the Art and Cultural Commission recommends council accept the artwork. If this is approved, staff will work with County Park Friends to develop an MOU to accept tax-deductible funds for artwork on behalf of the project group. There is no planned use for any public art funds in this art. And again, the recommended action here is to approve the Art and Cultural Commission's recommendation for public artwork titled "To Honor the Women of Water," and to direct staff to pursue a partnership with County Park Friends for a fundraising campaign to fund the fabrication and installation of the statue. Before we go into questions, I wanted to make sure to let council know that in the audience, we have members of the project team that are also available for questions. We have the project lead, Carrie. We have the lead designer, Allison. We have one of the artists. Did Brian make it? Yes, hi. Brian Curtis, and then the board shaper, Bob Pearson. And with that, we are available for questions.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have any questions?
I don't think I have any questions at this point.
Great.
First of all, I guess just a comment. One thing just for myself, I am touched by the opportunity that Capitola has to have the statue project come forward. And I was just really touched by one thing with our mayor's leadership in meeting with the group, but also I was just wondering, not as much as a question, but if we could ask Carrie to stand up and just say a couple words about what this project meant and means to her and her group and to the overall region and everything. I think is very touching what I've heard from her. And so if that's
She's
okay.
willing.
Yeah.
We would love that. Yeah, come on up. Thanks, Carrie.
Hi there, I'm Carrie. And yeah, a bunch of the project team is here tonight. So it's not just my project, but it's all of ours. This project started a few years back with the idea that surfing in Santa Cruz is such an essential part of our culture. And we have a male surf statue, but why isn't there a female? And so this really was built to be a completion of that story. A friend introduced me to Bob Pearson, who introduced me to Brian Curtis, who's a third-generation Santa Cruzian, and went from there. The two artists were ecstatic at the idea to be able to have another figure built. And, the idea was also to continue that story or to finish that story, but also to bookend Santa Cruz, right? We are surfing is so deep in our culture, in our economy. So the male surf statue on the west side, a female surfer statue on the east side. It also bookends the World Surfing Reserve. And so, our hope is that in just 5 years from now, right, that little kids would not know that there used to just be one statue, right? That it was always meant to be two. And that's the purpose of it.
Amazing. Thanks.
I'm sorry, just one thing I just wanted to highlight is I appreciate how you reached out to the community about this opportunity and how much you included so many people in the community around what you want to do. And I think I applaud you for that. And
Thank you. We're ecstatic about the idea of being able to be in Capitola. Public art is meant to be celebrated around and celebrated with, and there's no better place in this town that we think she should be.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Carrie?
A quick question. How long has the project actually been taking, or since you first started till got to Capitola?
I would say, the idea, a couple years from us actually, creating this amazing team and figuring out how you would fundraise. This is a new rodeo for me. So how do we fundraise for this? And starting to have conversations with County Park Friends. it's not just a statue with nothing around it, right? What can we build around it so that the community can have a space around her to enjoy? So I'd say about a year, just over a year, I'd say. Yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing it to us. And the only other question
ecstatic.
is what took so long to get to Capitola?
You know, quite frankly, I didn't come to Capitola at first because you guys have so much amazing art, right? And I didn't realize that the city would be willing to work with us to build a space that's special for her. And that was important to us, that he has a sacred space around him, and we wanted her to have just as much opportunity to be enjoyed. And so we're thrilled about the idea of creating a new space. And it being the entrance to, you know, an area that is beloved. You know, something that I love about Capitola is you guys welcome in not just your residents, but the entire community, right? We came last night for, you know, the music in the park, for movie nights, for art and wine, for, you know, the Women on Waves contest, you know, the junior guards, right? These are all opportunities that brings in the greater community. And so it's just an amazing, you know, a world-class destination is going to have an icon that not just the Capitola residents will see and be proud of, but, you know, she's only going to be the third in the world. And the first two are actually tribute statues, tributes to professional surfers. This is going to be someone who represents the rest of us, right?
Thank you.
Thanks.
I want to say thanks to everybody coming, Bob and his daughter, and I see Hillary,
Hillary,
former mayor
Jane
of
McKenzie.
Santa Cruz City. More folks out there, maybe you want to introduce them all?
Yeah, please. Hillary Bryant, Jade McKenzie, world-class surfer. And do I see any in the back? Okay, there's one. Hi. If you guys don't know Rootstock, it's one of the most beautiful art collectives in town. And as you said, Bob and Kyla, Allison Hobbs, and Brian Curtis is here. And Connie is just one of the members of the Capitola community who's also on the advisory council.
Great.
So thank you.
For everybody coming.
All right. Okay, thank you.
I don't either. Thank you so much. Very exciting. We will take this to public comment. Anybody wish to speak on this item? Hi, welcome.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Before my comments on the project, as someone who managed numerous tragedies in the city of Santa Cruz, my heart goes out to you, to the chief. When you've seen mutual aid in action, it really works. So to Vice Mayor Jensen's point, thanking the responding agencies. And our hearts go out in this moment of tragedy. It's not just a tragedy in Capitola. The community is mourning with you and mourning with the family. And I know when you sign up for these roles on council, you do it because you love your community. There's such passion around it. You just want to make it better. And in these moments when things like this happen, it affects all of you. It affects staff. It affects every member of our community, not just Capitola. We don't live in silos. We live in a community of Santa Cruz. And my heart goes out to all of you. That feeling of it was on my watch is very hard. And so I just wanted to make that comment because it brings back a lot of memories for me that were very, very challenging. But to the joy, this project is so incredible. Carrie has put so much work into this. The team has really come together. My daughter's very first surf contest was Women on Waves, and she still has her plaque from when she was 7. I imagine many young girls in the future taking pictures in front of the statue. It'll celebrate not just surfers and swimmers and lifeguards and paddlers, but the countless women and girls that find joy and confidence and community in the ocean. I'm so glad that Capitola has received it so well. And I do think, as someone who helped put together the Santa Cruz World Surfing Reserve, having those bookends will be incredible. And I hope it's as iconic as our statue is on the west side, and maybe even more so because it'll be number 3. So To all of you, thank you for your time. To the Arts Commission that supported unanimously, and certainly city staff that helped us. I just want to say thank you this evening.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Good evening, Council. I'm here to support this application because I'm a business owner. I am an art advocate. I hate to say it, but I'm a perpetual fundraiser, and I'm a woman. This application, this statue is good for business, and I'll give you an example. I Googled it today. I Googled the male statue, and the first thing that came up was the Santa Cruz Economic Development page. It says a lot. The second thing that came up was the San Jose Mercury News, an article, and the San Francisco Chronicle, an article, and I stopped there because it probably has national significance. This will bring people from all over the world. People Instagram things like this. This will bring business to our village. It will add credibility to Capitola, and it's just all good. There is no bad about this. I encourage you to consider going quickly about this. I'm happy to hear that it has an interim spot. I would hate to see it continued to a potential upgrade of the Esplanade Park, because we all know that those things take a lot longer than we think they will. We also know that funding is going to get more and more difficult over the next few years. And I have a feeling that that could sort of go by way of what happened to Rispin. And, you know, it finally gets done, but it could be years. I think everyone is prepared to move it if it needs to be moved, but in the meantime, we get to enjoy it. So I hope that you approve this and approve it for quick installation, as quick as possible. These guys have, I just think, I get goosebumps when I think that they brought this to Capitola. So happy about it.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan, Council Heidi Kellison. I live in Capitola. I'm also really thrilled and very thankful to the team for thinking of Capitola. It's a very big moment of pride, but I want to speak a little bit seriously. For the last about 20 years, I've served the Governor's Office of Emergency Services Sexual Assault Victim Services Committee. We set the service standards and the reimbursement for rape crisis centers throughout the state of California. And previous to that, I also have experience, deep experience in gender violence prevention that I won't go into. This is an important statue, and while it is not the hands-on kind of education that really needs to occur, it is a symbol that will be noticed, and it will embed itself in the hearts of the people who walk by it. They won't even know it. Symbols around women and girls being included in public life and in private life is important. And we all know that women are under attack right now throughout our nation. So this needs to happen. I'm standing with Gail and saying, please have it happen quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, grab it, yeah. Yeah. Hi, welcome. Good evening, Mayor Morgan and members of the council. My name is Tricia Wiltshire, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships with County Park Friends. And I'm here this evening just to say we're so excited to explore this opportunity with you and your team. As you know, we have worked with other partners in the county to get Treasure Cove up and running. And as a member of the community who has come forward with an idea, I always love meeting other individuals who not only come forward with ideas, but have the chops to make it happen. And I hope you can feel comfortable knowing that Carrie and her team have partnered with County Park Friends to work on this project because you know us, you know her, and we know you. And this is another opportunity to really showcase what we do best as a community when we come together to make a vision happen. So we're excited about this project. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Good evening, Council. I think it's only appropriate to at least have one guy get up and talk about this. And, you know, what an awesome opportunity on a in light of all your busy schedule, you have an agenda tonight to do something great for our community. This is a great piece of art that's being contributed. I think it will also bring a lot of people to take a look at it. And if you look at the list of who's who on Carrie's group, it really are, you don't even have to be a surfer to realize it's like, I hate to use the word legends, maybe we do that too far, but really it's the legends of our community of the water. And so I hope you guys accept this. It's going to be a great opportunity. I just have one ask if I could, and that is maybe that I saw, and I didn't see the complete details, but is that we include Carrie in her group. If you know anything about Carrie, Carrie's very detail oriented, and she likes to see things through. And I just hope you include her in the process so that she can make sure that the statue, not just her statue, our statue, gets the position, the place, the environment that we would want it to have. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah. Please. Welcome.
Mayor, Council. My name is Christopher Lockhead. I'm Carrie's husband. It's my greatest achievement in life, clearly. But I did want to say, in light of what happened this week, how horrible it is. One of our best friends was murdered in this community almost 7 years ago, Tushar Atre. And I just wanted to thank the chief and ask a question. Is anything formal being done for the family? Is there anything we can do to support them as a community? Because Carrie and I have been really upset since this happened. We know this pain. We know what this family is now going to go through. It was 2,407 days for us. So if there's anything formal being done by the city, from a GoFundMe to anything else, we would love to know about that and participate in that. And Chief, thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you. All right, we'll take it for any comments.
Well, I'd just like to first comment, I think this is amazing. I think it's about time there was a statue of a woman surfer on our side of town. I'm just thrilled that they've come to Capitola and given us this opportunity to have this statue in our town. I find it just amazing. I love the plan that they have and the location where the statue is supposed to go. In all honesty, I don't know if we want to call it an interim location, because I think people who do fundraising want a location for where their project's going to go. And, you know, we all understand later on in life, if something gets moved, it can be moved. But I think for right now, it ought to be the location for where the statue is going to be located. I think that, you know, us as council members, we're here to support you and help you in any way that we can as far as your fundraising effort. We know Friends of County Park are an amazing organization and have done wonderful things in our community already. And so, you know, having an MOU and working with them will be thrilling. And I'm just excited to see this go forward. And I appreciate all the work and effort that all of you have done and the community members who convinced you to come to Capitola and talk to us about doing this. So best of luck.
Yeah, I guess just my final comment would just be, you know, sometimes when we live here in Capitola residents, we say community, we mean just like we kind of look on the inside. And this was really a community of the whole entire region. And I applaud your group on how you brought I'm well done. Yeah, that was you. I just applaud your group for helping us look outside and, you know, looking at the whole community coming together. So with that, I would like to just make a motion and then hear from the other council members. But I guess 4 parts of my motion would just be, one, I'd like to make a motion to accept and approve the art from the Art and Culture Commission recommendation for the public art titled To Honor the Women of the Water. Number 2, approve the proposed location. Number 2 is to direct staff to work with any minor alterations or small related items with the Women on Water Committee as needed with the committee. and also to direct staff to pursue in the partnership with County Parks Friends for a fundraising campaign to fund the fabrication and the installation of the statue.
I give that a big, big second. Thank you for.
I'd like a little more discussion on it if we can.
Yes, go for it.
It's just such a fantastic project, but what I want to see done is it start now and not be delayed for anything we might be doing with the park, with Esplanade Park. It's super important for us to move on it, and I mean, our Public Works is a great team. I think we can all work together and get it started and not wait any longer and just move forward.
Would we add that to the motion?
We can definitely add that to the motion in bold if you want.
Put a rush on it. Any other comments, Joe?
Well, are you done, Joe? Okay, I'd like to make my comment too.
Please.
Just want to say what a great opportunity this is to welcome and be home to such a meaningful piece of art that honors women, period. It represents equity, partnership, and a deep respect for the women in our community. I'm very excited that our city will have another opportunity to work with County Park Friends, as well as Carrie's team, to make history here in Capitola. I think the statue will be a symbol of our connection to the greater Santa Cruz County community and how we should embrace our shared love for the environment and work collaboratively toward a better and more equitable future for the entire community. I agree with all of my council members that we should ensure that this moves forward quickly and make it happen.
Amazing. Yes. I just want to give my sincere gratitude. Meeting this group of Carrie and the group has been really rewarding, and this is just the first step. So thank you for all the hard work that you've already put into this. I know there was a lot going on, and I think this is the perfect spot for her and for us women to be represented where we deserve it. And I mean, what better backdrop? So thank you. And again, great partnership as always with the Friends. So I think all the collaboration is coming together and it's creating the perfect project. And so just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. And we have a motion and a second.
There was an amendment to the motion. I just want to confirm that the motion maker and second both accept.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. May we have a roll call?
Councilmember Clark.
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach.
Aye.
Councilmember Westman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jensen.
Aye.
And Mayor Morgan.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
All right. Jessica, do you think there's anything we could fit any of the items in between now and 6:15? Do you think we should do that? Are you guys okay with that? Yeah, let's move that up. Is that all right? Okay. Thank you, everybody. As mentioned, we may do some jumbling today. Thank you for attending. We will be moving item 9D forward so that we can fit it in before our 6:15 hard start for item 9B. And that's our interim city manager's job tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. This one should be relatively brief. This is a confirmation. A confirmation of a project that we've talked about just recently. Oh, you want to sit here? Thank you, Chloe. Sorry. You're good.
Musical chairs tonight.
So you may recall in May, the council approved moving $50,000 of our RTIP funds that we had for sidewalk planning to move towards a shovel-ready project for our CDBG project. At a subsequent meeting, staff had identified Cliffwood Heights as the location for that project. As a reminder, CDBG, you can only do projects in eligible neighborhoods. This neighborhood is one of those eligible neighborhoods, and the Cliffwood Heights neighborhood had significant infrastructure needs that matched up very well with the CDBG purpose. Also, just to be clear, we're not making any decisions on applying for that funding with CDBG this evening. That includes a whole public hearing process, but it does behoove the city to have a identified and shovel-ready project at the time of application. It's required. So there's three parts to the neighborhood project. One is roadway rehabilitation. Here we have almost all of the streets in this neighborhood, and most of them are below a PCI or pavement condition index of 50, which is poor. So this project would be rehabilitation of all the streets highlighted. The upper part of Monterey Avenue is actually in very good shape. So that's why it's not included in this project. Another portion of this project, in addition to roadway rehabilitation, is to add a continuous sidewalk up into the middle school from Park Avenue. Where we're proposing this is on the west side of Washburn Avenue. This would include adding sidewalk in front of the frontages of some of these homes, continuous with the Park Avenue project that was completed several years ago, across the frontage of the middle school, and that would be to be determined because there are parking spaces. I cannot see my mouse cursor, but there are parking spaces right here, and we wouldn't position a sidewalk behind parking spaces, nor are we suggesting that we would reduce any of these parking spaces. So this is more just a location of the proposed sidewalk, generally not a layout. And then the third potential piece of this is that there is an unimproved rolled shoulder up on Monterey from Bay up into Washburn Avenue. Unimproved rolled shoulders tend to not be very stable. It's hard to keep a full bike lane there. The ditch is made from many different materials over many years in several different conditions. So that would be an add-on potential to this project. So the roadway rehabilitation requires that you also do ADA improvements to bring all your curb cuts up to code. So that's in there. Any associated drainage improvements would also be considered part of that roadway rehabilitation. We have an estimate for the Washburn sidewalk of around $250,000. And then obviously you put in a construction and soft cost estimate at this stage, since we have yet to start any kind of engineering plans for this. Depending on our initial draw out of these plans, we could see if we could put in the drainage improvements for that ditch on Monterey, but that's why it's TBD right now, because just based on this preliminary estimate, we're really close to $5 million already. And with that, we'd like any feedback from the council about this potential scope before we start moving this project forward with engineering design.
Thank you so much. Do we have questions for Jessica? Okay, thank you.
I just have one question, and I got asked this today, so maybe you can refresh my memory a bit. Someone from the Upper 40s Avenue asked me why we were doing Cliffwood Heights and not their neighborhood. So could you elaborate a little bit about why we picked Cliffwood Heights over that neighborhood?
So mostly it's pavement. It's the pavement condition is so bad in this neighborhood. And when you compare it to other similarly sized eligible neighborhoods, this is the worst by far. I know that is very dependent on what street you live on to how you perceive it that way. But based on our pavement management program, that is what we have. And then also the middle school proximity and creating a safe route to school from Park Avenue is very important. That's the only public school we have in the city.
Okay, thank you very much.
To take that one step further, there's also opportunity for grants in Pacific neighborhoods, right? And so that also part of it, like some neighborhoods wouldn't qualify for this type of grant?
Correct. So our community center in Jade Street project was in a CDBG eligible area. That's why we were able to do those projects there. It used to be that CDBG, the city qualified citywide, so we could do project anywhere. That's no longer the case because of the metrics they use to determine what neighborhoods are eligible. So this one is an eligible neighborhood.
Okay, and one last question. Would we, if we were lucky enough to get the grant, would we also look at the possibility if we needed like a speed table or something like that, would those be able to be accommodated if the community, from an outreach standpoint for speed control and stuff like that?
I would say similarly to what we did with the community center and the playground project, we included a lot of adults, and it just kind of depends when we bid it out how much we have to do. So similar to doing the repair to the ditch, we can definitely, as part of this process, examine what kind of speed tables or speed restrictions we could add to this project and the need there. And then when we actually bid the project, assuming we get awarded the funds, see what we have in available funds to execute those.
Perfect, thank you.
I just had a follow-up question. So since there's the school there, is there one of the radar signs like on Monterey over there?
I'm not sure if there's one right by the school. There's definitely one on Park Avenue, but I couldn't say off the top of my head on
Just
Monterey.
an idea if,
I'm pretty certain there's one on Monterey. I
Yeah.
think there's definitely one if you're driving from Park Avenue into town, and I'm pretty certain there's one if you're leaving town. But there's at least one on Monterey.
yes. I was just wondering about near the school, or if that was a
Well, it's sort of by the park school area.
like economic choice or something other than a speed table. I don't know. Just that was my follow-up question. None other from me. Any public comment on this item? I don't see any. So we can come back to council. Any comments or anything?
The only comment I have is it's a good project. I know that, like Councilmember Jensen said, that this is an area that we'd like to do for everybody, but this is grant able just because of the location. So I think it's important we move on this.
Yeah, I'm 100% supportive of this project. It's where we get this, hopefully we secure the funding, but if we can get secure the funding to holistically do this work within this community, I think it'll be great, especially given that many of our students and families commute to school in that neighborhood. So I support it.
I agree with my fellow council members. I support this. I think it will be a nice improvement to kids going to and from school, as well as enhance the neighborhood. And I'm glad this particular neighborhood qualified for this grant application. So I'll let somebody else make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I'll just approve the proposed planning scope for the Cliffwood Heights Neighborhood Rehabilitation Project and provide additional feedback and direction. We have done that. So there we are.
All right, first and a second. Maybe a roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach, Councilmember Westman,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jensen,
Aye.
and Mayor Morgan.
Aye, passes unanimously. Thank you for all your hard work on the grants. All right.
Seems like we may need to take a few minute break.
Yeah, I don't want to try and squeeze in anything weird and get cut off. So stretch your legs, grab a soft drink. We have, 13 minutes. Welcome back. It is now 6:15 for our item to start 9B, fourth public hearing to receive the community input and provide direction to staff regarding our districting maps. Sorry, I'm looking in the wrong direction.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the introduction. Tonight is our fourth public hearing that we have discussed this topic more times than that. And the purpose of tonight's hearing is to select a map to be introduced as a part of our ordinance and discuss and select the sequencing of the elections to be coming up in the years to come in Capitola. And of course, with every public hearing, the main purpose is to receive community input on this election. So if I could just have the next slide. We're going to go over the background to date. We've talked about this at each of our different public hearings on the subject, but back in March, the city received a letter alleging a violation of the CVRA. In April, we adopted a resolution of intent of transition to district elections. We also hired Doug Johnson from National Demographics Corporation as our demographer. We launched a public website where we held a variety of tools for the public to engage with us throughout this process, including mapping tools provided by NDC. We sent out 2 public mailers to residents in Capitola. We held 1 informational meeting on May 14th and then our first public hearing on May 28th. We held an in-person community question and answer session, as well as the second public hearing on June 11th, another community outreach meeting on June 20th, and then the third public hearing, not second, on June 25th, which brings us to today, which is our 4th public hearing. Next slide. Our public outreach to date has been pretty extensive. We've had really continuous website updates with general districting information, reports, and public comments from each different touch point of the districting process. We've had public mapping tools, which have evolved as more people have submitted public submissions for maps. We've had questions and comments, and we've posted responses to those questions. And then we've hosted all of the different map submissions we've received. We have published 4 comprehensive frequently asked question documents that have been generated from questions received from the public. We had a developed districting email address where we received questions and would respond to them regularly as they came in. And like I mentioned before, we did send 2 direct mailers to residents. Next slide. To go over our timeline, we are at the end of this process. We have 1 meeting scheduled left, and that's going to be on August 27th. So tonight's meeting is the 4th public hearing, at which point we are introducing an ordinance that will determine the sequencing and the map selection. The 5th public hearing is scheduled for August 27th because our deadline to complete this process is August 28th. So at this point, we've kind of reached the end of the road for the districting, and we really want to thank not only the council for sitting through multiple hearings on this subject and public meetings, but also our public for sticking with us along the way, for submitting their input, for submitting their maps, for giving us ideas and really working with us. And then also I want to extend a thank you to our demographer, who's been really open and helpful to our community and to our council members throughout this process. It's been really wonderful to see how much community input we can get when we work together. The next slide talks a little bit more about that community input. So I really want to highlight that at each different touch point, we've gotten input from the public in emails and speakers at meetings. We've gotten a lot of public map submissions. Tonight, for your consideration, we technically have 12 different public map submissions, not counting the demographer's maps. There are 5 public maps not being considered because they either had not the right number of districts or they didn't follow the districting rules. And then the total number of questions submitted via our online form is 11, and all of those were answered as a part of the Q&As that we published. Next slide. So throughout this process, the council has identified a couple of future work plan items, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that we haven't ignored those, but they are going to be coming up after the districting process is complete. And so some of the items that we've heard from council so far include a residency procedure or a policy, a procedure or policy discussing council vacancies, a update to our term limits. This one I have highlighted as needing voter approval. It's not something the council can just decide on their own. And then finally, an update to the procedure to appoint persons from the public to our advisory bodies within the city, so the vacancy procedure. So these are all future projects that the council can tackle kind of once this initial project is completed. So again, tonight, before we close this meeting out, I'm going to hand it over to Doug to go over the maps and the sequencing components of this. But the main recommended action is to conduct a public hearing to discuss the proposed maps up for discussion this evening. Like I said, we have 12 from the public as well as a couple from Doug. And then we'd love to receive some community input on those maps and then provide direction to staff on which map to include in the ordinance, as well as the sequencing of the election. I'm available for questions, and then, like I said, Doug is also available and he'll be providing his own presentation.
So good to be with you again, and thank you for the beautiful weather as always. So it's always a good day to be in Capitola, I think. So go ahead and go to the next slide here. We just walked through the timeline. So just looking at this point at choosing a map, and then we have to introduce an ordinance and do a second reading of an ordinance. So that's tonight and the next meeting. The next slide. Just as a quick reminder, we've been over this many times. I suspect that most of the people in the room at this point could probably recite this as well as I can at this point. But we do have statutory rules, so we have to follow. First, federal laws of equal population, the Federal Voting Rights Act, and race cannot be the predominant factor, no racial gerrymandering. Then we have the state's statutory criteria. See them listed up there, and these are in prioritized order under the statute. Districts have to be contiguous. We have to avoid, as much as possible, dividing any neighborhoods or communities of interest. We have to follow easily identifiable boundaries. And then the last in the state's list is be compact. Don't bypass one group of people to get to another group of people. And then, as you see in the top right, there's a prohibition. Cannot draw or adopt a map to favor or discriminate against an incumbent, a candidate, or a political party. So go to the next slide. On that neighborhoods item, of course, there could be others that could be discussed, but through this process, the community, as you just heard, has been very engaged. It's been great to see. And so we've received actually maps and comments discussing a number of different neighborhoods throughout the city. So we wanted to just restate that list for the record. Again, this is not an all-inclusive list, but these are the ones that have been mentioned as a part of this formal process. Go next slide. So now getting into the maps. So we have received, as you just heard, lots of maps. It's been great. You know, when we say 15, it's a city of 10,000. It doesn't sound like too many, but there aren't that many ways to draw up the city. So 15 maps is great. And as you'll see as I go through this, many of them are very similar. A lot of these maps only vary by a city block here, a city block there. So I've tried to kind of pick out the 4 that have what we've been referring to as the upside down T center, that are kind of the cleanest and the show the range of options around that center upside down T district. So one of the things I've loved is that the residents have stayed engaged in the process, and as there have been comments and preferences stated, they've been submitting more maps to reflect those changes. So it's not that the maps that came in at the end are getting any kind of favoritism, it's that the people drawing them were taking into account what the people had looked at in the earlier maps. So no surprise that the 4 kind of best, well, in my outside opinion, look at these that capture this and then illustrate the variety of options best are for the last one. So you got 411 in the top left. You can see where they really differ is over in the west in how they divide up to the west of the upside down T. And then there's a lot of differences right on the border of what's the central district and the northwest district. You know, as any of you that have looked at the maps or played around with the online mapping tool, getting those population numbers just right, they come so close that you want to, it should be nice and clean, but they're not quite close enough. So we do have some challenges and all that. The other place where there's a lot of variation in these maps is the central district and the northeast up at the very top, up around the mobile home park. Name I'm blanking on, Turner? Turner, I was pretty close, Turner. Up around that Turner Lane Park, we run into a real challenge of we can get most of it in, but not quite all of it in unless we divide the heights. And so there's a trade-off there that hopefully when you come back to this in 2031 with new census blocks, they won't have a census block that carves out part of Turner Lane Mobile Home Park from the rest of the park. So we've got the kind of straight across in 411, the more all of the west end of Capitola, everything west of 41st Avenue United in 413, kind of halfway between in 414. And then 412 is very similar to 411 in that it is kind of a straight across the top of the jewel box region there between the two western seats. Those two vary much more in the boundary on the other side. The numbering does vary, and I realize that can be a little confusing that the numbering varies, but we stick with the numbering that the people who submitted the maps put on it. Because a lot of times they'll send in an email or something that says District 1 is this, District 2 is this, and if I standardize the numbering, then their emails don't make any sense. So that's why the numbering is a lot. So those are really the 4 big picture differences between them, but there are more maps. We go to the next slide. These are some of the earlier upside down T center options. You can see 402, 403, 2 people submitted the same map. That's why they have the same number, or different numbers, but the same map. And you can see these are very similar to the ones we were looking at before, just little differences, and these are earlier versions. And I think everyone that submitted these maps, or almost everyone that submitted these maps, submitted a later map as well. I go to the next slide. And I should say, while I'm describing these as others, and the other 4 is kind of capturing the ideas the best, all of these maps are available for adoption tonight, whatever you prefer. And then, like I said, a lot of people were listening to the discussion and focusing on this T-center option. 409 is a very different approach. You can see that up there where you have kind of a diagonal boundary between the 2 western districts, what we call in mapping a stair step as you walk down the line. So it is a different approach, but these are very similar to those original 4. Go to the next slide. I'm going through this quickly. We're happy to come back and look at as much detail as you want to in any of these maps. And of course, we did get a number of maps that are not that upside down T approach. They're still on the table. Very different approaches. You can see from 406 on the top right with kind of a across the creek central district, but that doesn't come down to the coast, and then one big long coastal district, so very different approach. And each of these is available to you if you want to come back to them and consider them tonight. And then the last one, if we go next slide, we did get one submission. It's non-contiguous when I entered it. And to the submitter's credit, they used the paper map. And so they actually, where you see the blue and pink coming down the middle and making it non-contiguous, on the paper map they had it contiguous. It's just the census block geography didn't cooperate. So when you put it in the computer has 2 long census blocks on either side of the creek that you can divide with a pen and paper, but that we can't divide in the technical implementation. So that's why it ended up non-contiguous. We did email the submitter to say, hey, heads up, this is an issue. If you'd like to revisit it, we'd love to see another map from you. They did not. The submitter did not send in a new map. But I did want to acknowledge it, say we appreciate getting all the maps. We also got, as you heard earlier, 5 district maps before the council gave direction to focus on 4 districts. So the public really has been engaged. We have gotten a great variety of maps throughout this process, which we're thrilled to see. So we'll go through the next slide. So at different points, there's been questions about socioeconomic summary. So we've been putting this little table together. And we'll say the 411 through 414, the 4 that I focused on that first slide, the socioeconomics are mathematically identical. So there's no, there aren't that big of differences between them. If you look through all these stats, they might vary by 1%. And given that these are survey data from the Census Bureau, 1% is identical, especially in a small jurisdiction like this. So socioeconomically, the upside down T, especially the 4 that are in that first slide, are identical. There's not going to be any socioeconomic differences. Can we go to the next slide? I did put this together as well. This is looking at those neighborhoods that were submitted through the process. If the square is blank, that means that neighborhood is intact. There's no division to it. So you can see a little bit of, some division is inevitable, especially given that, West Capitola is defined as being everything west of 41st Avenue. Well, that splits what was defined as what I've called the jewel box extended, which runs all the way to the edge, but doesn't go up north. So some division is inevitable, but obviously, as you heard in the criteria, we want to minimize that. And really, when you walk through, you can see that they're all pretty good on this. At the bottom, I do bring up which is really more of a community of interest of the 6 mobile home parks. And you can see the note there about Turner Lane has a small split. Some of them, where it says small split, there's just the one edge of mobile homes on the far west edge of that taken out. And those maps are better about not splitting as much at Turner Lane, but they have a larger population deviation. The reason the one that says, or the 2 that say Turner Lane divided, they take a little bit more. They actually take one of the central pieces of the Turner Lane mobile home park out, so it's closer to 50-50 split, and they get a smaller population deviation. So it wasn't like they were choosing to split it. They were just emphasizing population balance over keeping that together. But that was the only one split, except for in 414, it's at the Sand. Mobile home park is also divided. Oh, Surf and Sand, sorry, is also divided in that one. So I wanted to give you that summary. You folks that are interested in the interactive review map that's on the city website, you can turn on the neighborhood outlines and go through the different maps and see exactly where these splits are. That's a quick run through of the maps. I do want to touch on the second piece. After you choose a map, then we have to get into the election sequencing. So given the direction that in 2028, which is will be the first by-district election, there'll be 1 seat up, and plus the mayor's post. And then in 2030, there will be the other 3 districts up. So we're really focusing, the easy way to focus the discussion is which seat comes up in 2028. The reason that sequence happens is, number one, because we have to match the current cycle. There have to be 2 positions on this dais up in 2028 and 3 positions up in 2030, so there are always 5 people on the dais. That's the basic requirement. There is a statutory provision in classic Sacramento form, incredibly vague. The language is there. it says give special consideration to the purposes of the California Voting Rights Act. Well, the purposes of the Voting Rights Act is to bring representation to historically underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. And as we've talked about before, Capitola does not have a geographic concentration of a racial or ethnic group that has been historically underrepresented. So that doesn't really play into consideration here because there's no neighborhood that fits that description. It does also say, take into account the preferences expressed by members of the districts. So you have to take it into account. You've been listening to the public throughout this process, and they continue to have input. I will flag, as noted here, the law requires that we have proposed election sequence from the moment we have the first draft map, but it also bans us from looking at where any of the council members live. So in lieu of the statute about CVRA telling us which districts come out, we're kind of caught in a catch-22 under the law. So we put a proposed sequence up there and we just say it's going to change. So we've complied with the law to give a proposed election sequence, and once you choose a map, then we'll be at the stage where it changes, and you do one based more on information. Go to the next slide. So we mentioned the statutory requirements about sequencing. When those don't tell you which seats come up when, which is in most situations, then we focus on respecting the will of the voters. This is the idea that the voters have elected the council. If council members choose to run again, it should be up to the vote. The voters should have the opportunity to decide whether or not that elected person has earned re-election. So this is where we get into looking at where the council members are. And if there's just one council member in a seat, assign that seat to that council member's year, assuming the council member hasn't already declared they're not going to run again. And so that's why we look at sequencing after you choose a map. We'll then pop up. After you choose a map, then we'll come up and say, you have council members in these seats who are up in these years. Here's the choice facing you given those facts. So we'll walk through that. As noted in the second to last bullet here, traditionally, there's one district up in 2028, so we'd pick one of the districts that has a 2028 council member in there. That's not statutorily required, but that is kind of the respecting the will of the voters approach that we usually follow. So I'm happy to talk more in detail about any of this. If we go to the next slide, the process tonight that we're recommending is, you've heard the two presentations. We got a public hearing. Then through your discussion, choose a map. And then I'll come up and we'll say, in that map you've chosen, here are the seats that have council members and don't have council members, and here's when people are up, to kind of lay out for you what the traditional options would be for which seat would be up in 2028. Then you would just discuss that. The public should keep that in mind. During the public hearing would be the time for them to share their thoughts about both map and sequence. And then we'll fill that in, and if you're ready to vote to formally introduce the ordinance at that point. So happy to answer any questions you have now or after the public hearing.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, my first question is for our city attorney. An email was sent out to us today, and it was talking about Huntington Beach's decision on its district-based elections. Can you touch on that for us to set the table of why we're here today and what we're doing?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Clark. So we've been following developments in the Huntington Beach litigation. It's been the position of some people that as a result of the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Louisiana v. Calais that the CVRA is illegal, we don't have to do anything, there's no requirement to move to districts, things like that. And earlier this week on Tuesday, the court ruled against the city of Huntington Beach. They tried to make a similar argument that, again, they didn't have to move to districts in light of Louisiana v. Calais. And in ruling against the city, the court imposed a remedy that would require the city to transition from its existing at-large structure to a ranked choice voting system. And in addition to that, the court is going to have them consolidate their elections so they won't be staggered anymore. So those are the big highlights from Tuesday's decision.
Thank you. And then a question for the demographer. Since we say we did not violate the law. We're not admitting guilt by us moving forward and going with election-based districts.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
So the question was, is how we're willing to move forward. But people have told me, well, by doing that, you're saying that we're in violation. And I don't believe that's true. But based on what our attorney just told us.
Yeah, no. At the very beginning, if people remember the first couple hearings, I had the slide about 229 cities have gone to district elections. Probably 224 of them have done so, saying, we're not in violation of this law, but in order to avoid litigation and because the state has given us this avenue into a safe harbor, this is the avenue we're going to take as a fiscally prudent approach. So yes. Mark, would you have anything to add to that?
I concur.
Thank you for that. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
I don't have any additional questions at this time. I would just like to comment, our chambers are pretty empty, and I think that's not that people got bored with this whole process. It's that our staff and the demographer have done an amazing job of communicating clearly and putting out good, accurate information to the public, so they didn't feel they had to be here tonight.
Yeah, one thing, just the city attorney, just to take Councilmember Clark's one step further. One thing we talked about was also a focus of us being fiscally responsible. And with the Huntington Beach ruling, could you just elaborate a tad bit on that other than from a liability standpoint?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor Jensen. So the benefit of voluntarily transitioning to district-based elections, as the demographer noticed, is that you're within the safe harbor. The statute provides this option to do it voluntarily and cap recovery to the complainant, the person that is alleging the violation. Outside of the safe harbor, so if the city decided to say, we saw your letter, no thank you, or not complete this process within the agreed upon deadline, from there, the complainant would have an opportunity to initiate a lawsuit, like they did in the Huntington Beach case. And because Huntington Beach lost and the complainant is the prevailing party is now entitled to attorney's fees. At this time, we don't know the amount of the attorney's fees. We expect the plaintiff will file a motion for attorney's fees. And at that point, the information will be included. But as we've previously stated throughout this entire process, there are lots of jurisdictions that have had to pay attorney's fees, north of $400,000 in the million plus range. So there's lots of examples of jurisdictions that have tried to oppose this effort and have lost.
Thank you for elaborating on that. And then just to follow up on Councilmember Westman's standpoint, to Doug and your whole team behind the scenes, myself and the mayor were, I think, lucky enough to be appointed by our council to sit through an interview process. And, from the time our first interaction, I left there feeling very comfortable in this process. And, when I walked out, I was asked a lot of times by the community members, like, oh, who's this guy? And I'm like, just wait, and so I appreciate that. And I think, you put a lot of trust into us and, educate us about the process. And that's why I think the room, it's a reflection of, your great work in educating us. And then also to our city attorney and your office on providing us legal guidance and stuff like that. So thank you to both your firms and to both of you. And I don't have any other comments.
Thank you. Julia, I had a follow-up question. The term limits are to be voted on by the public.
Correct.
And so that would be in 2028? Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
The council could always opt to have a special election There would be a cost associated with that would be higher than consolidating with a regular scheduled election. But if the council really wanted to bring this up sooner, we could have a special election to discuss it. Otherwise, it could go on the ballot in 2028. Got it. That's the council's direction.
Yeah, okay. And then, Doug, I was just curious if your thoughts, just because some of the, like you stated, maybe there was a split of Turner Lane in some of these, or maybe even Surf and Sand, but I would assume the recommendation would not be to avoid that within certain communities, like a hard split of a specific neighborhood, like a mobile home community.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's always the preference. The challenge is that in that northeastern district, either Turner Lane or Cliffwood Heights have to be split.
Yeah.
In order to stay within the population limits.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you so much again. We'll take it to the public. Any comments on this item? Hi, welcome.
Mayor and council members, I'm Cami Corvin and a resident and business owner in Capitola. I live in Castle Mobile Estates, a mobile home community. I just wanted to reiterate what Mayor Morgan had just talked about, Turner Lane being possibly split, and then Surf and Sand. Turner Lane's approximately 79 units, Surf and Sand 30, 40 max, very small. As you know, I'm running for city council, and one of my things that I'm doing is talking to the mobile home community, which is so important. And I don't think a lot of people understand, but the mobile home communities they're a very tight-knit community. So we always look at them as being a community within a community. So they're a community within Capitola. And the reason that happens is because the houses are like San Francisco. They're very close together. So there's not much privacy there. And so we kind of know everybody's business, whether we want to or not. And so that makes us a closer knit community. And so that being said, I really would like and hope that the council and folks will take into consideration, hopefully not to split up such a small park. I think would cause more problems and detrimental issues for that particular park versus, I know Cliffwood Heights is a neighborhood. I think it's a much larger neighborhood. And so maybe there could be some concessions there somehow. Anyway, my whole point is I just would really like to see the smaller communities, which, thank you for the council's continued support with the mobile home community. Jerry Jensen, Margot Lissamone, this is very important that we have this voice and that it's loud enough that people can be heard and feel that they are part of the community, because going out and talking with a lot of them, they're not feeling that way. And so we want to keep that within the community, and I think it's super important. So I thank you very much. Doug, you've done a great job. Local boy makes good. Thank you for that, and always happy to have that. And the council and city attorney, thank you, sir, for all your hard work and legalities on this too. And chief, thank you again for all your hard work and just understanding the community. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Would anybody else wish to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll come back to council. Councilmember Clark.
It sounds like we're at the point where we're going to try to pick the districts. So maybe I'll say our top three and go down the line, and then we can circle back and see if anybody has the same ones.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to do yours, Joe?
My favorite, 412. Next one was 411, then 415. They're all very similar. They would just want to hear what the other council members have to say, and then maybe we all have the same one.
Yeah, I prefer to adopt 412. This is a DNC drawn map. It addresses some of our previous concerns about wanting to keep our mobile home parks together, although I acknowledge that there's a small part of Turner Lane. But in the other maps, we're splitting more of the upper 40s and the jewel box. So this is, this will ensure that the jewel box is united, it's clean, and it's clear, and there are distinct neighborhoods north of Capitola Road and south of Capitola Road. Easily identifiable boundaries. It avoids any, major divisions of the community. So I like this one the best.
Do you want to give like a runner-up, just in case
want-
you have a runner, just in case there's like a discussion?
I think the other ones are very similar. So let me see. A runner-up. I think my runner-up would be 411.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Weston?
I agree with Councilmember Orbach. I think 412 is the best map. I like the fact that it was done by the demographers, so it was, clear and unbiased. So that would be my first choice. My second choice would be 411, and my third choice would be 415.
So I always like to make sure it doesn't look like there's collaboration. I just printed mine out so I can show that I brought mine in. I had it 412, 411, and then 415.
Well, just based on our previous conversation, mine would be 413, just so that there is no division of Turner Lane. But 412 would be my runner-up, just because the split is smaller. And then, yeah, I mean, I think they're all pretty similar between 411. So, yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve, we select map 412.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a first and a second on the maps. Are we going to vote on the maps first and then do a separate?
So that's up to the council. We can have, for example, we could have a motion on each kind of component of this item and take action separately, or we could have one motion on introducing the ordinance with the map and the sequencing and have that all be one motion at the end of your discussion. I'll leave that to the council. I'm looking to Mark to see if he has any input.
I go one.
I agree with the city clerk, and I would defer to Madam Mayor on this. There's multiple different ways to do it. I'm just so very excited there's a map and
Okay, are we feeling like we want to just put it all into one motion?
Or separate, it might be easier.
I want to go one at a time so I don't get confused.
Okay, so why don't we take a roll call on the first piece, which would be deciding on the district map?
So I have a motion to select map 412 for inclusion in the proposed ordinance this evening by Councilmember Westman and seconded by Councilmember Orbach. The vote will be Councilmember Clark.
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach.
Aye.
Councilmember Westman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jensen.
Aye.
And Mayor Morgan.
Aye. Passes unanimously. All right, next order of business would be to select the sequencing of the district seats that will be up in 2028 and 2030. And I will defer to Doug once again.
Very briefly, and I do want to note, for those that are concerned about Turner Lane, that you nailed the two maps. If folks want to see, to try to put Turner Lane together, you look at 413, because it's not just that line of houses, it's all the way down to Hill Street. Yep. It comes down. So those, you nailed the maps to look at for the key decision there. In terms of looking at map 412, so we have one. It's pretty spread out. District 1 has one council member. District 2 has one council member. District 3 actually has two, who are up in 26 and 28. And then District 4 has one up in 26. So looking at which seats would have council members up in 2028, kind of the easy way to look at it, would be Districts 2, the jewel box district, and District 3, which is the central upside down T district. So one of those most frequently would be the one that's up in 2028, and then the other three will be up in 2030. I say most frequently. If the council member in the seat isn't running again, then it kind of becomes a wild card and you can do whatever you want in that seat. But does that make sense? So, any questions about that?
Thank you.
I'm just curious, Doug, your next slide about the sequencing regarding respecting the will of the voters, does that mean in order to respect the will of the voters, we should choose the districts where the council members are up for re-election? Is that what that means? Or
you want to align them with the council member terms as much as possible, because if a 2028 council member is in a seat that's up in 2030, then the voters don't get to decide if that person has earned re-election. They can't run in 2028 because the seat's not up. Now, in your case, they could run for mayor. So it's not a final decision in the way it could be somewhere else. But that's why I talk about respect the will of voters. If someone wants to run again and their term ends 2 years before their seat is up, then they can't run again, and the voters don't get to decide whether or not they earned re-election.
I see. We can also stretch it to say that by having 2 district seats up 2028, we would also be respecting the will of the voters, as opposed to the 1.
If you postpone the mayor's election to 2030.
Which was your recommendation, was to have 2 districts go in 2028 and then 2 in 2030 with the at-large mayor in 2030.
Well, it was one of the scenarios I laid out. I don't have a recommendation.
Okay, I'm just making a point.
Okay. I just want to make certain I understand. So we have 2 seats that are up in 2028. And out of those 2, one of them will be an elected, the way we did it last time, one of them will be an elected mayor and one of them will be a district that will run for election. So how do we decide which is which? Do we flip a coin? Thank you. Do we flip a coin? What do we, how do we make that decision?
You can, yeah. You know, if and I don't know, I have to pick up the paper that had Councilmember Clark's announcement about his election this campaign, but I don't know if either the Vice Mayor Jensen or Councilmember Orbeck have announced you're not going to run again in 2028, which would be very surprising to announce 2.5 years in advance. But that would take the question off the table and we just go with the other one. Barring that extremely unusual situation, yeah, you can flip a coin, you can make a choice.
I mean, I think it would just, personally, it would be hard to choose from one to, I don't know how you do that choice.
I do like the point that you made, though, that we have council members here in every district, and District 3 has 2. So just doing that math, there will be no one in 2028 in District 2.
Well, the other interesting variable we're not getting into is that you have an election this year. So, so we don't really know where we're looking at going under the assumption that the current city council is the council. That may not be correct, but yes, if Councilman Westman is reelected this year, and that seat is up in 2030, then Vice Mayor Jensen could not run in 2028, but there would be a resident council member. If it goes the other way, assuming no one new is elected from Council District 2 this November, then yes, the District 2 would not have a resident council member until 2030. That always triggers a question about I'm not represented. And actually, obviously there'd be the mayor. And keep in mind that the council members elected this November are elected at large and will continue to be at large for their entire 4-year term.
Yeah, so I'd just like to add in, first of all, looking at the map that's been selected, I think there was some assumptions that there wasn't coverage across our city, and something I think I pointed out in previous council meetings was, I didn't share that. I think our city's done a very good job in getting people involved across the city and identifying neighborhoods. So looking at it, 4 of the 5 council members that sit up here and 2 were appointed was across the whole entire community. And if we look at the 2 that were appointed, they're both from different districts. Just so happens to be, no one knew this was coming. And then another thing is, I gotta say, this is far over and above, our city now is 75 plus years old, and it will continue on. This is far above any one of us that are here today, any staff member, any of us that are here. And so this is about the future of Capitola. It's not about election coming up in 26 at large and 28, and again at 30, and can I run everything? It's bigger. It's about representation. And I think we've also gone down the road of talking about one position with elected mayor, 3 there, and I think that's been voted on and talked about and discussed. And so I'd like to see us just move this forward into what would be the process of selecting that district, and whatever that is, it is.
I do like to add another point, and in looking at the demographics of the 4 different districts, that the district with the highest population of Hispanic residents is on the west side of Capitola. And if this argument is about no Hispanic representation, then there's an argument there to have that district go first.
Does the city attorney want to clear that up a little bit, that we don't want to be talking about from a race standpoint?
Yes. So the main sort of rule coming out of Louisiana v. Calais is that race cannot be a predominant factor in the discussions, but that does not mean that it cannot be discussed at all, or that we're prohibited from discussing it. And based on the record before us, the city has considered a number of different factors, and it does not appear that race has been a predominant factor in these discussions in the council's deliberation.
And I would note, too, just the numbers you're talking about in terms of citizen voting age, 2 is the highest at 22, 1 is 19, 3 is 13, and then 4 is 15. And so technically, yes, it's higher. That data is from the American Community Survey, so there's a big margin of error. And that comes out when you look at the voter turnout and the registration numbers, where there's like a much tighter band of 12 to 17%. So yes, it is numerically the highest. It's not a like demographically significant difference, I guess, or statistically significant.
I just bring that up because we've heard from our residents that that was an important factor for them.
So where are we right now? So are we at the point where there are 2 seats that are going to be up in 2028? And so if we're going to go forward with having an elected mayor, and one of them be an elected mayor and one of them be a council member, we need to come up with a procedure how we decide which of those 2 districts is going to be which. And, you know, for me, if you have 2, I think the easiest way to do it is to flip a coin, because there's no, you know, we don't have other mechanism to decide. And I'm certain the mayor is quite good at coin flipping. So, I mean, to move this along, I think we need to make a decision if that's the way we're going to go or not.
Staff has brought a coin just in case. It came to this. We have a 50-cent coin, so it's larger than your average coin. But we are prepared for that if that's the decision of the council.
I just have a follow-up for Doug. I think you already touched on this, but so it's, say we're deciding on either District 2 or District 3. One would be the council seat, and then the mayor could be from any other district. So what you mentioned earlier is like there is a possibility of a district to not be represented in 2028.
There's the possibility 3 districts could not be represented in 2028, you know, depending on how this election goes and who decides to run when.
We have the 2026. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's that, and I do want to emphasize, I shouldn't use not be represented.
Well,
might not have a
seat
resident
or,
district
yes,
elected council member,
and they will be represented. Yes, which I agree with that 100%. If we're deciding on a coin toss, that's fine. I just want to say that I don't want any part of that to be misconstrued, that there was any person that flipped it incorrectly or anybody that saw it incorrectly. I just want to take the guesswork out of the process. I'd rather not hear about it later. I obviously am unbiased here. I don't have a choice, 2 or 3. I'm not weighing the coin one way or another. I've not practiced. So it could go either way.
You're the mayor.
Just pretend like you're starting an NFL game and you flip the coin and it lands on the ground, and whatever it is on the ground is what it is.
Okay.
I agree with the coin toss.
So do I.
Okay. All right. Well, who's who? This is the other thing. I'm not picking what side is what. Somebody else can
Councilmember Werbach can make the
decide
selection.
that.
We'll go with heads.
So District 3 is heads and District 2 is tails.
I'd go out front so you can just leave.
Oh my
You both have a 50-50.
Oh, Chloe knows. Julia has it.
Well, two is, oh no, 2 is tails. 3 is heads.
I just wrote it down.
Heads. So District 3, the central upside down T seat will be up in 2028 along with the mayor's race. Excellent coin toss. Yep.
Thank you. One of the weirdest
Marco.
things I've ever
Nice
done.
job, Marco.
Well, now the NFL needs to hire me.
Yes.
The NFL needs to hire me, though. Yeah.
So for the next step, I'll hand off to city attorney because now it's the formal introduction of the ordinance.
Should we take a roll call vote on the district? Yeah, on the flipping. Okay. May we have a roll call that based on the coin toss, District 3 will be the elected seat in 2028.
Sure. So is that your motion, Mayor Morgan?
Yes.
There's
I'll second it.
Okay.
Great.
You're involved. You don't get a second.
I get a vote?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second that
Roll call,
District 3 will be on the ballot in 2028. The roll call vote will be Councilmember Clark,
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach,
Aye.
Councilmember Westman,
Aye.
Councilmember Jensen,
Aye.
and I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Jensen, and then Mayor Morgan.
Hi, thank you. Passes unanimously. And then we'll turn it to our attorney to get our next portion here, number 4, properly announced.
Mayor Morgan, if I may, can I address somebody in the audience?
Yeah.
I see my friend Frosty here.
Yeah, he did come.
I believe you were here earlier for the statue. It passed, and we already had that item. I saw all your friends in here earlier. I didn't want you to have to sit through anything that you might not want to sit through, more coin tosses or anything else. But
Highly entertaining.
yes,
It's a Thursday night.
he's one of the legends they were talking about. So thank you for coming.
Thanks, Frosty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for doing the coin flip. I'm glad I didn't have to do that. So turning to the draft ordinance that is included in your agenda packet this evening, it starts on agenda page 154. Just going to jump forward a few more pages to fill in some blanks here. On page 157, there is a blank for the ordinance number, which will be assigned by the city clerk, but I do want to note that Exhibit A will be map 4112, which was adopted by the city council. Thank you. So the Exhibit A is referenced in subsection D1 on page 157. I'm going to jump down further to section E11. I'm going to read off some text here. Commencing with the general municipal election in November 2028 and every 4 years thereafter, the voters in District 3 shall elect city council members for full 4-year terms. Finally, filling the remaining blank on page 158, and that's subsection E12. Read that into the record as well. Commencing with the general municipal election in November 2030 and every 4 years thereafter, the voters in districts 1, 2, and 4 shall elect city council members for full 4-year terms. So with those blanks filled, the ordinance is ready for the city council's consideration.
Do we have to make a motion to adopt it?
Yes, to introduce and waive the first reading of the draft ordinance. And of course, this will be coming back to the city council in the August meeting for a adoption and second reading.
So we'll move what you just said.
Yes, the first reading.
I will second that.
All right, first and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach,
Aye.
Councilmember Westman,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Judson,
Aye.
and Mayor Morgan.
Aye, thank you. Passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Doug. Much appreciated.
My pleasure, and I'm glad to the local guy doing good. I'm actually sticking around this weekend to meet up with my old friends from the 41st Avenue Playhouse back in the day. So
Fun. Enjoy. All right, moving on to item 9C. We'll be discussing the Bay Hill intersection.
So earlier we had a council member ask questions about this.
Yes, so we're limiting this evening's discussion to just the intersection at Bay Hill.
Oh, thank you.
Is that my understanding?
Do you want to limit it to Bay and Hill and Center?
Yes.
My request was to leave out Capitola Avenue since
there you
we're
go.
going to be talking about that one later.
That's fair. Thank you very much. We have Jessica.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. We're here to talk about the Bay Avenue corridor. As you may recall, it is a priority corridor as one of our arterial corridors in the city. It is also considered a priority corridor in our local road safety plan that was adopted earlier this year. There's an amount of high pedestrian and bicycle activity in the area considering the uses along the corridor. We currently have funding sponsored by Representative Panetta and the RTC to do improvements along this corridor. There are also additional funding opportunities available depending on council direction looking forward in the future. Last time we spoke about this area, council directed staff to go evaluate alternatives to do some lower cost, more quickly implementable improvements on the corridor, and that's what I have to present to you for your consideration this evening. So really quickly, a lot of the improvements include lighting. That's something that we've heard from the council and from the public, and then also recommended in our local road safety plan as a countermeasure to accidents in this corridor. The recommendation from staff, if we would like to pursue lighting, is to pursue solar lighting. PG&E process to do on-the-grid lighting is very long and difficult and time-consuming. There has been a lot of innovation in solar lighting in recent years. It's been proven really effective in a lot of places in the East Bay. And so we have talked to several vendors considering this particular corridor to get you some accurate information for this presentation. Next slide, please. So one of the things we discussed during other conversations on the Bay Avenue corridor is the Center Street crossing. So this is Center Street. This is right after you pass the Nob Hill coming off of the freeway. And then on the opposite side of the street is the Bay Avenue senior housing. There's been a lot of talk about providing more safe crossing across Bay Avenue, particularly for that senior community. The suggestion is a raised pedestrian crossing, complete with ADA ramps, curb extensions to make the crossing across the street a bit shorter than it is right now, and then a refuge median in the center of the street. Again, including solar lighting and striping, the estimated cost of these improvements is about $300,000 to $350,000. Next slide, please. So these are the improvements here that we have shown you before. That does include taking out that free right turn and filling in that median, again, to reduce that crossing distance across Bay Avenue. So making, it's still 2 lanes further back, which you can't see out on this drawing, but again, merging those lanes where they merge now and getting rid of that free right turn. There's several reasons that this side of the intersection was selected. One, because it's a shorter crossing distance. It keeps all of the street parking on the opposite side of the street, which is a concern in this for the houses that are on the frontage there of Bay Avenue, have very limited parking for that part of the neighborhood. And then also making a left turn if you're coming towards the freeway, you don't want to be crossing over a crosswalk to turn left onto Center Street. That has more of a collision potential there than where it is on this drawing. Next slide, please. And these are just bigger examples so you can better kind of visualize what it looks like on the street. This is not a raised crossing here, but it does have that center median. It has our flashing lights that are push button activated and the bulb out. So this is a very similar configuration that we're proposing here at Center Street. Next slide, please. To talk about Hill Street, some improvements that were suggested were also lighting. Again, that solar lighting that we estimate about $30,000 to $40,000. And then staff would also recommend putting in more permanent flashing signage. We did do that as part of the quick build. There is flashing signage there now. We did not use the highest quality because it was a quick build and we did not know what the final configuration of the intersection would be, given that this is the configuration of the intersection. If council desires to keep those long-term, it would be worth investing in a better quality flashing lights. Next slide, please. We will skip this conversation for a later date. Next slide, please. And then there were some other intersections identified in the LRSP that we have not talked about before specifically when talking about the corridor study, but are worth bringing up as places that there have been documented pedestrian collisions on Bay Avenue, including Crossroads Loop, Oak Drive, and Burlingame Avenue. Some potential improvements here could be solar lighting, though that probably warrants a bigger conversation in the more residential areas like Burlingame and Oak, but maybe something that's more desired on Crossroads Loop because it is in a commercial area. And then doing high visibility pavement markings for both pedestrians and for bikes. Pedestrians being this ladder type striping. Some of the neighborhood crosswalks have, where you have the light there, kind of this two parallel stripes. And the standard now is for safety for pedestrians is to have that ladder striping that's on the bottom right there. Also adding pedestrian crossing signs. 2 stop signs is something that is allowable by the MUTCD. Next slide, please. Just as a visual, those are the 3 intersections we're talking about. One there, Crossroads Loop, and then the other down there past Center Street at Oak Drive and Burlingame Avenue. Next slide, please. We do anticipate future corridor improvements. We are not recommending right now doing long-term improvements for bicycles down the corridor. That's something that we expect to probably get recommendations about bike movements in the city in general from our active transportation plan, which is currently being developed. Similarly, we do know that there are ADA improvements that could be made. There are a lot of non-compliant curb ramps, not to say that there are no curb ramps, they're just not to current standards. And the replacements of those are about $20,000 to $25,000 a piece. Oftentimes we do these replacements when we do major pavement projects like we were talking about in the Cliffwood Heights item earlier this evening. Next slide, please. So currently we have funding secured for Bay Avenue, most notably the $250,000 supported by Congressman Panetta. That is on a shorter turnaround for spending. We recently got more information about getting that grant finalized this week. We have the money that we have from the RTIP funding remaining from when we did that reallocation. That money is a little more fluid and not necessarily dedicated to Bay Avenue, whereas the $250,000 very much is. We have funding pending for the SS4A grant that we expect to hear back in fall of 2026, which included improvements on Bay Avenue. And then there's always our RTIP funding in future years that we could apply for additional improvements. Next slide, please. So we are looking for some direction this evening on what projects to advance, and based on those recommendations from council, once we get our funding, know that it's secured or we haven't received grants, we can come back with a final determination of how to move forward with the funding that we have. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you so much. You have questions?
I just have one quick question. We're talking about going to solar lighting, which sounds like it might be a real good way to go. Do you think there's any possibility that if we work with a solar company that they would put in a demonstration light so we could see it, or you could give us locations where we could go and look at the solar lighting, just to make certain that it, it's bright, it does what its job is.
I would have to research the idea of the demo light. I will say at least one of the solar companies we reached out to have intersections in Monterey County where they are currently implemented. I can try to find if they have any that are closer.
Yeah, I just think it would be nice to actually get to go see it before we make our final decision. But, it seems like it's a good way to go. And for me, I would sort of put at the bottom of the list, but if there was money left over, adding lighting at the Crossroads intersection at this time, because that one is also pretty dark, but that would be the crosswalk at Center Street would be my top priority, getting that in and getting the lighting in at Bay and Hill. And then if there's money left over, looking at putting a light at Crossroads. Thank you.
I guess an education for you, Jessica, is Crossroads Loop, that's a private street, is that correct?
The street of Crossroads Loop itself is private. Its intersection at Bay Avenue is in the public right of way.
Yeah, I think if we get to that point, it might be worth the conversation to talk to the owner, and say, we're putting in this, maybe there's buying power that they could join, it could be enhanced all the way through. But yeah, I love where we're going with it, and no other comments.
If we move forward on this project, is this going to be able to segue into our TIP or our active transportation plan?
Yes, this is definitely something that is already in our local road safety plan that's being considered as part of our active transportation plan. So the goal of the active transportation plan for active transportation is to have all of our studies that we've done previously also incorporated, and any active projects incorporated as well.
And to clarify, us doing this is not going to do anything to the lanes that we have in the area on Bay Avenue, in Bay Hill?
No, any improved striping would be for visibility's sake of configurations we already have.
Thank you.
I just had a follow-up question on the other designated areas that came up, like around Burlingame. And was there any discussion of possibly doing just a regular crosswalk, just a painted one, not a crazy expensive like raised one, only because it's such a long stretch from like Center all the way up to Monterey? Or is that not like would it not be considered safe since it's not a true intersection?
So you mean across Bay at those locations?
Yeah.
That wasn't a recommendation that we had. When I bring up those intersections, I mean across those streets that are on Bay Avenue.
Oh, I understand. Okay. Okay, I was going a different direction there, but I get why that's that. Okay, I don't have any more questions. We can go to public comment. Hi, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name's Nels Westman. Bay Avenue is one of my favorite topics. With this proposed reconfiguration, when you're headed on Bay towards the freeway, the single lane currently expands to 2 lanes in front of Dairy Queen. With this new design, it will remain a single lane all the way to Hill. And then after Hill, it opens up into 2 lanes. So I see kind of a potential. Let me back up and say, one of the challenging things about living in Riverview Terrace is making a left turn off Center onto Bay Avenue heading towards the freeway. And I think the way you've configured that crosswalk is only going to exacerbate that problem, particularly because I think there's going to be a reasonably high potential for there to be stop traffic back to the Center Street crosswalk. The Center Street crosswalk is really no longer than many other crosswalks in Capitola. So I don't see the reason to put a pedestrian refuge in the middle of that relatively short crosswalk. And I think it makes the problem of turning left onto Bay Avenue from Center much, much more challenging. For those of us that make those left turns onto Bay, one of the things that's nice is that we're able to complete our left, when there's backed up traffic, we're able to complete our left turn in the center median there, basically the double turn either way, center lines, and parallel with the traffic headed towards the freeway, and then complete that turn, put on our right turn blinker, and hope that somebody in this bumper to bumpers backup will let us in. This is made impossible by those, I think, unnecessary pedestrian refuges in the middle of the crosswalk. Without those, somebody turning left could complete their left turn in the center area and then merge when it's safe into the cars, first car that'll let them in. So my recommendation would be not to have those raised medians in the center of that crosswalk. And I'm sure it will save money. So the savings there. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just another consideration to think of is that when traffic is backed up, that right-hand turn lane that goes on Center into the Riverview Terrace neighborhood is an option to relieve some of that traffic. People do go into the neighborhood, and quite honestly, you know, a lot of people even going to New Brighton use that going to school in the morning. So I'm not opposed to having alternative traffic options. If you lose that right-hand turn lane, if we go from 2 lanes to basically 1 lane in front of the storage center, if Bay Avenue's backed up, like, it's just going to even get compounded because there's no way for that traffic to be relieved in front of the storage center on Bay Avenue. Something to consider.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, come back to council. Any comments?
Some clarifying questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Can we pull that intersection back up and see what the talk was about? You still have the raised crosswalk without having the barriers for the pedestrians in the middle?
Yes.
Somebody can come off, turn left, and then merge into Bay Avenue.
Right, they would be crossing through the middle of the crosswalk. There would be no pedestrian refuge. The purpose of the pedestrian refuge is for people to stop and wait for traffic to come from the other way. And it's also for someone who may not walk very fast to be able to stop and then continue on. So, yes, you could remove the median refuge area, but it would not be recommended from a crossing safety standpoint.
That's all I have, thanks.
If the whole reason why we're doing this is for pedestrian safety, I'd prefer to keep this as safe as possible for pedestrians.
So the purpose of doing the sort of bulb out and eliminating the right-hand turn lane that's there right now is to make the crosswalk shorter?
Correct.
So I'm sort of wondering what the impact would be if you kept that right-hand turn lane if we have a pedestrian median in the middle. I mean, I'm just trying to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, I do think it's important. We've talked about this crosswalk. We've talked about it being for the seniors, and we do want it to be as safe as possible. you know. I think I'm fine.
A question, have we studied the impact of what the concerns that were brought up? Like, has there been a study getting rid of the right turn lane onto Center? What potential that could do? Do we have any counts, or what does that look like?
We have a lot of traffic counts for this intersection. I would suspect that the amount of traffic turning would be the same because there still is the opportunity to turn right here. It doesn't eliminate the opportunity to turn right. Would it slow traffic a bit? Potentially, yes. Do we have a study on that? No.
And then just one other thing, I just maybe follow up on Councilmember Westman's comment earlier. Just, I think we've been talking about the Bay Avenue corridor as one thing, and so I think getting some clear direction, but maybe not a final approval tonight until we resolve what potential issues might be looking at just a couple hundred yards down the road as a next meeting. So maybe, getting some consensus kind of where we're at, but knowing that we're going to go back and still talk about 28 funds and potential roundabouts and not roundabouts and stuff. I wouldn't feel comfortable really voting on this and moving forward, and then in just August 27th coming back and we're still talking about this, but it's a couple hundred yards down the road. So I'd like to see what other council members thought about that.
Yeah, no, maybe we can have another option, even having the right-hand turn lane brought back in, and so and get rid of the bump out. But you can still have the bike lane closer, like split between the people turning right and the people that are going towards Gales.
I'm interrupting you, sorry. It'd be nice to know how many people actually use that right-hand turn lane. If we have some traffic numbers, or how many people, leave the Riverview Terrace neighborhood and turn left. I mean, it may be a fairly small number. I honestly don't know.
And I think to that point, I think because of the way that it's set up right now, people taking a right-hand turn don't typically do a full stop, just having walked there a lot. And so a pedestrian going towards Gales may not know that there's a car coming from behind them. And if they don't anticipate a pedestrian crossing upwards, and the speed is, if they don't feel like they have to stop, the speed is maintained. That's why and this way they have to make a complete stop, possibly wait for a pedestrian to turn right. So that's why I'm not mad at this. I'm getting a little, I feel like we keep pushing this back and back and back, and we're not making any decisions when, I don't know how solar lighting at Bay and Hill is going to affect Rule 20A at Capitola and Bay. I just would like to have some real, if we can choose things that are going to happen at that intersection tonight to get funds moving. We have some restricted time on the money from our congressman, who now we're doing a completely different plan than what we had originally when we got the 250,000. So for our community, for the council's sake, we've kind of ad nauseamed this, and I really would like some concrete direction. If we can do the painting, the striping, the enhancements, the solar lights, I think if we're talking about the crosswalk later because of the traffic, okay, but I
think Bay and Hill's easy to deal with tonight if you want to just deal with that intersection.
Yeah, I want to get something
down. I just maybe if I just clarify my comment. Many council meetings, there's been votes, we're not doing roundabout. Then it says we are doing roundabouts, and then it says they're on ice, and then we're taking them off ice, and we're going to do 28 funds, and so it seems like I totally agree we aren't making decisions, but then comments are made that we might be going backwards. So I think making Bay and Hill safe, putting in lights, going forward with that, but with a concern with could this potentially affect traffic, and then next week we're talking about. I like you. Let's get it done and let's make a decision, move forward.
Can I ask Jessica, when do those funds expire? When do we need to act by with the Congressman Panetta's funding?
So it's not so much an expenditure timeline, it's that they need a project definition.
I see.
And that is in a very short timeline. The congressman has asked us directly to provide that.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Mayor Morgan. We should move forward with these safety improvements that we've been talking about for so long. And sure, get some data and get some traffic data, but this is what I think this council has been wanting and the community has been waiting for. I think we should move forward.
So what about that we go forward with the improvements that have been shown on Bay and Hill, you know, the additional lighting? I would like, you know, still the information so we can go look at the solar lights. And it seems like that, you know, we certainly could tell Congressman Panetta's office that, you know, we intend to do the crosswalk at Center and Hill Street. You know,
Center and Bay.
Center and Bay, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, the only thing we're asking for is, you know, a little more information at our next meeting about traffic counts.
So, okay, so if we could go to Congressman and just say like that the intersection at Bay Hill, give him exactly what we've discussed, and then that the crosswalk, raised, lighted,
yes,
all the fun stuff is planned for once the further traffic study on either side of it is complete.
So just to clarify what council is looking for in regards to the Center Street crossing. So counts I can provide. That is something that we definitely have. If we're looking for a redesign, that's something we're going to have to spend money on.
No,
I'm not interested in a redesign.
No.
So we can sort of verify what we're talking about.
Yeah, nothing wild.
I think we should move forward with these plans.
Agreed.
Look at the numbers. Sure.
Okay. So should we make a motion to proceed with the Bay and Hill lighting enhancements, painting enhancements, and then with the possible approval of the Center Street crosswalk once we've received an update of counts?
That sounds like a wonderful motion.
And we won't approve the lighting until we see it. All right.
And with the commitment that we're going to resolve the rest of Bay Avenue on the August 27th and not, and I think we had it scheduled to talk about the 28 funds tonight and it got pushed off the next meeting. So let's get it done and let's have it done.
It's a big motion. You're going to second
Second
it? Okay. I was waiting for that.
Madam Mayor, if I may, just a clarification
please.
on the Rule 20A. It's become apparent that we should have a representative from PG&E here, and I do expect them to be available on that evening, but it has not been confirmed.
Okay, that would be amazing. Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second. Maybe we have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach.
Aye.
Councilmember Westman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jensen.
Aye.
Mayor Morgan.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you so much. All right. Last item of the day, 9E, Transportation Project Coordination and Phasing Overview. Jessica's busy this evening, wearing all the hats. Thank you.
Absolutely. Final item of the night. Okay. So it was requested by the council maybe 1 or 2 meetings back about talking about the interrelation of some of the projects and programs that we have going on here in Public Works related to transportation and how they interrelate to each other. The question was also asked about some of the sequencing about projects that are outside of the cities that are not City of Capitola projects, but do affect the City of Capitola's residents. So with that, there were several very large attachments to the staff report. This is not a very straightforward, it's how you run a department. So it's not going to be extremely straightforward, but we did take our best stab at showing how these things do interact with each other, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions you may have. So the table was divided into 4 parts: planning, programs, current projects, and then future projects. And this isn't all-inclusive. Definitely there are projects that we intend on falling out of some of these planning studies that aren't quite in the future project phase because they haven't been confirmed, but we all kind of know that there are projects that are identifiable that we'd be doing in the future. So we kind of left it as far as the future projects, the projects that have already been discussed by council. So planning is just that. The active transportation plan is a planning effort citywide. The Stockton Bridge evaluation, again, is not a construction project at this moment. It is an evaluation. And then the trestle feasibility that I believe is coming to next council meeting is also something that right now has no construction funds tied to them. Programs are things that establish priorities generally over the whole city. So we have several programs that we run continuously and then that we update every now and then, such as our pavement management program, that we kind of sequencing our street rehab over the local road safety plan, our ADA transition plan, and then our sidewalk infill. Then we have our current projects, which you're all very familiar with, things that we are constructing currently or very close to constructing because they have significant funding associated with them, such as 41st Avenue that will be wrapping up in the next few weeks, Bay Avenue, which we discussed, Raposa, which should be done here at the end of next month, and then Cliff Drive's Phase 1 that we have secured funding for but not yet have received. And then our future projects, such as what we expect to fall out of some of these planning programs, is something for the bridge, the future Cliff Drive sections, and then what may come out of the 41st and Claire's study that will be coming back to you here shortly. So from all that, we ended up with this very large table about how these all interact with each other. And a lot of them do and a lot of them don't. We came up with this system of how they either directly inform something, support something, or indirectly support something. And those two are a little more fluid, but I'm gonna go through one example line of this chart to kind of tell you what we mean. So the one I picked was the 41st corridor study. The table that's included in your packet gives a brief explanation of what that study is. And then down the side has all the other things that we just talked about. So the active transportation plan is definitely something that considers that project, right? There's ped and bike improvements that you all are considering with that project. 41st Avenue does not have much to do with the bridge. So that is nothing. Same with the trestle feasibility study. There are parts of our ADA transition plan that will apply to the 41st Avenue project, if nothing else, but improving our curb cuts. Same thing with the pavement management plan, it's a road. The local road safety plan, we know that's a priority corridor. The sidewalk infill program, we definitely look if there's opportunities within that program to connect or improve sidewalks when we're considering this project. And then our multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, which is a program that is not all transportation related, but definitely 41st being our main arterial corridor and getting people in and out of the city in the state of an emergency puts that as a consideration when we're doing any kind of improvements to that stretch of road. So then you get to some of the specific projects, and while the corridor study is not influencing our current project, it is something we consider when we do the study, current projects we have in the queue. Same thing with our SS4A, which is related directly to our local road safety plan. Obviously, any future project will fall out of that corridor study, which is why that is the filled in line, because that is directly related. And then again, annual PMP projects. So it's related to the program as we consider when we update the program, but then also putting it in an identified project. So we do that like 20 more times in the table. And so anything that you're thinking about specifically in relations to the programs and why those relationships are chosen, we can definitely talk about. Also included in your packet is a transportation timeline for our project specifically, and I think there's a lot of caveats to trying to project these. Obviously, we have multiple projects going on in different states at the same time, and it's really the planning and design and the funding often overlap. You know, sometimes we have planning and design funds. Sometimes we don't get into a whole corridor plan to design, you know, a Raposa type project. Grant funding, obviously, for something like Cliff Drive, that is up to the federal government when they're going to give us the funds that are dedicated to us. That's not something we control, so that affects timelines. Same thing with permitting, depending on what kind of project it is. It may or may not require permits from multiple outside agencies. And so really, this is an anticipated sequencing that was included in your packet today. So I won't go over all of these. I will say that something like the annual PMP projects, we anticipate doing annually that has a dedicated funding source from Measure D and SB1. So those are pretty secure and that we will continue doing those projects year over year. And then a lot of these things with our plans, with our sidewalk info plan and our local road safety plan is really as funding occurs or the council decides that any part of those plans become a priority on any given year. Again, some of these are updated. The PMP and the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan has laws requiring us to update it at a certain given time. So those are put in the timeline. And again, it's just really dependent for the construction piece of it on what kind of funding is available. Oh, I did put this in here. So, this is for this current fiscal year where we're at with the projects that we identified. Obviously, we're working on the active transportation plan. We've talked about that several times this evening. Director Hurley mentioned the 41st Avenue Corridor study. The trestle and the Stockton Bridge should be coming to you for some consideration at our next council meeting. The ATA transition plan you all adopted, I believe, end of last year or early this year, and that is ongoing. And then that gets reevaluated periodically to make sure we meet current codes, however they've changed. Our pavement management program project this year is the 41st project, so there is no standalone PMP other than the Raposa. Again, pending funding for some of these other programs. Current projects we have in construction, we've already talked about this evening, and then our future projects other than the PMP are really just dependent on council direction for seeking future funding and what future funding opportunities arise. All right, last but not least, we have a lot of regional project coordination. I know it really does not feel that way to the residents, but we do talk to each other biannually, standing meeting. And the main players for us transportation-wise in the county are Caltrans, the RTC, and the county. But other projects such as sanitation projects like we had down in the village earlier this year, water projects with the city of Santa Cruz and Soquel Creek, PG&E, who seems to be working continuously everywhere. And then more recently, the Metro has I forget the name of their project coming up, but they have one coming up. Yes, thank you, Rapid Corridors, that has a few stops in Capitola that will affect our right-of-way coming up. Just like us, they deal with grant funding, they deal with their board's direction, they have all the same constraints that we do. So there are projects that we're aware of. This full chart was in your packet. I included all of the references so you can get information straight from their horse's mouth about where they are and their projects, but these are ones that we know that are either happening right now or coming down the pipe. I'm sure you all got the notification that they're going to close the Bay Avenue southbound off-ramp here in the coming weeks. So yeah, that is happening. And that's a project that should probably be ongoing for as a whole for another year or so. That is the major project for this fiscal and probably next fiscal year that will affect us. But of course, the Murray Street Bridge project affects this whole side of the county. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that comprehensive report.
I don't know if this is really a question or a comment, but I'll go ahead. So I think that you did an amazing job on this. It always, is impressive to see all the different things that are going on in the city at once. I think that I seem to, in some ways, have a pretty simple-minded approach to it because one of the things that we keep talking about is, transparency and having information out there that the public can see and understand and it's easy for them to identify with. And in the last month or so, I'll just give you an example. I've had several people ask me, actually more than several, ask me, about our Cliff Drive project. And we absolutely want to go forward with doing the Cliff armament on there. Saving Cliff Drive is a very important thing for this city. Keeping it two ways is extremely important. But as part of that project, we're proposing to do some major improvements for, I think it's like a 16-foot wide bike lane, and it's going to be 290 feet long. And people say, well, where does that go? What does it connect up to? And so what I had really hoped for was that we were going to have some sort of plan where we could see that, you know, all the projects in the city and how they connect to each other. I mean, what happens if we do these improvements on Cliff Drive when we get to, you know, the end of Wharf Road and Capitola Road? How do they fit together? So, you know, I really appreciate everything you've done. This educated me a tremendous amount. And, you know, I hope it will educate other people. But I sort of think the piece that's missing is, do we have an actual plan for what we're going to do? Are we just waiting for this ATP grant to give us a plan? And if we're waiting for that, should we be waiting for that document to be here before we do anything? You know, I honestly, I don't have an answer for that. But as a council member, I still don't feel like I have a concept of how these things fit together. So I guess that was more of a statement than a question. Sorry about that. But, you know, so I still have questions about how do these individual pieces fit together? How will they change when we have, you know, sort of the big ATP program done, and how is it going to work?
I think I can answer a portion of what I perceived to be your question. So specifically to the ATP is an active transportation plan. So it's specifically meant to improve pedestrian and bike and scooter alternative transportation. Other projects, such as our pavement management plan, is really just about pavement. Like, we tie in other improvements, but that is about pavement. Something like Cliff Drive is a hazard mitigation. And so while it is a transportation project, the primary purpose of those three efforts are very different. And so sometimes they do happen to tie together because they are transportation projects, but really when you're going after something like funding or permitting, you have to more consider the primary purpose. And something like Cliff Drive is really complicated because we're trying to keep the cliff up. That's the main purpose of that project. For anyone to give us permits to do that, we have to improve the roadway, and the roadway pavement needs improvements anyway. The permitting agencies want a safer bike ped, pathway, which is something that we've all identified over the years also. It's an unimproved road shoulder, and they have a say on how that gets done. And they also are on their own timelines. So bringing all of that together, especially when we only have money for a piece of that project, it does look like now we have a floating sidewalk. What good is that? Completely agree. Like a sidewalk in the middle of 1,000-foot, what connectivity is that? And it's partially to eventually demonstrate we're going to have all that connectivity. And part of it is just because we have to. No one's going to give us money if we don't.
Right. I guess my question is, why don't we demonstrate that we're going to have that connectivity? So, when someone says to me, why are you building this floating one section? I can pull out the map and say, okay, here is our master plan for, what we ultimately want to achieve. I sort of feel like we're doing piece by piece by piece. And, I've been trying to put it all together, and it's hard for me to put it all together. I think this is great. I just would like to see, sort of a map. We do a general plan. We do other maps that show how things are going to work. So that's my comment for right now.
And I guess maybe to add on to that, so that's, I get that question also too from Cliff. And then we have like a physical barrier of the hotel and I think a residence. So if it was at 16 feet wide in an ideal world, it comes into a taper at that part. And then we have, some drawings of the Stockton Bridge showing it, 52 feet wide with another bike lane. I think to Councilmember Westman's standpoint, it looks like that's an intent that's going to be a bike lane all the way through. If that is, then I think we should identify that and then have that conversation about that's why we are. And then I didn't know this part, that funding is basically restricted. If we didn't have a 16-foot bike lane up on Cliff, that would hurt our chance of funding.
If we don't do some kind of multimodal, it will not be funded or permitted if there are not multimodal improvements. I will clarify for the public that the 16-foot bike lane is a multi-use ped trail, so that's a bicycle and pedestrian pathway. I'm not certain what drawing we're referring to with the bridge at this time. There is a concern that we do have a constraint further down the road where that hotel is. There's just the right-of-way is what it is. And to have a fully put-out bike lane all the way into the village is something, unless that building were to go away, is not possible. That probably isn't to suggest that we shouldn't do improvements where improvements can be made. I will also say specifically to the Cliffside Drive project, we do have, and we are currently working towards permitting that one piece. Again, that does seem kind of odd on its own. There is a master plan project that has been presented previously and is on our website.
Yeah, and at the same time, that also puts a bike lane on the other side of the street at 5 feet, right?
I don't know all the measurements off the top of my
Oh, okay. I thought it showed like an adjustment. So, yeah, I don't know what it takes to have that vision or whatever, but I guess if we just go back to maybe, and I appreciate, like, this is amazing, all this, for you to highlight how much work you and your department and all the other agencies are doing, but just going back, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to ask these questions, like, around Cliff Drive, where are we in that whole process? Could you give us an update? When I look back at some documents, it talks about, we were supposed to be done in April of 25, and then I know there's some delays from Caltrans, right, doing some more studies and stuff. Can you give us an update of where we are with that, and then is our funding overall in jeopardy because of these delays, or how's that whole Cliff Drive project look right now?
So there's a timeline that was originally put out. This is emergency relief funding. So it's supposed to be, you request the funding approximately 2 years after the event happened or they approved your application. That got pushed out because Caltrans did more cultural resource studies. We've completed those studies. We're waiting for them all to concur that we've done our due diligence. We're going to put out a CEQA mitigated negative declaration in the coming weeks to work through some of our environmental piece. So we're in the position to request the money from Caltrans in late September, which is our current deadline.
All right, I thought there was some comment, like I think the city manager made about talking about that the request for authorization funds might be going out in like September. Are we still on that schedule right now? Yeah, so as far for the public, we're doing everything we can. We're delayed now because of the additional study that was required that Caltrans is doing. I mean, right?
Correct. That Caltrans, we had to do the work that Caltrans requested and has to approve.
So we're on schedule pending what we're getting mandated. All right, and then one thing on the matrix, I was just confused on one of the line items. So it says the relationship of the trestle of the Cliff project is no connection from Cliff to the trestle, but then later on, the trestle to the Stockton Bridge supports and contributes. Aren't those more like connected together? I mean, isn't Cliff and the trestle have some connection as much as the trestle to the Stockton Bridge, in the sense of if the study comes back from RTC that there is another way of transportation or using that corridor, wouldn't there be some connection to that?
So by virtue of them all being close together, yes, they are connected. The trestle thus far is not we're in the very preliminary stages of that project. Same with the bridge. The only project that's fully flushed out is the Cliff Drive project. So I think there's some definitely interpretation that we could make with the table that we made, but those were some of the considerations.
I was wondering if there's something bigger why you felt one way or the other. The next thing, could you give us an overview? We're just starting the ATP right now, even though and that's going to be a document that will be ready for us in the next year. And will they evaluate all this information you're going to give to that committee for them to look at the same time to see what improvements we are doing or what we're projecting to do, so they can have that information in front of them?
So for the ATP, again, which is active transportation, which some of these projects are not, but the ones that are related to active transportation are considered with that plan. Some of them will be mapped as completed projects by the time the ATP is done. Others will be future projects that will reflect where they are at the time we adopt the plan.
Okay. And then a follow-up on all these projects that we do and the ATP and all that stuff. What guidance do staff give to all these other agencies or these other consultants that work on regarding 8.72 and what the restrictions are that are put in place by the ordinance to adhere to what it is, and that the ATP grant doesn't go down a road of, per se, of saying, with them not knowing that there is an ordinance, because the people that are on the ATP grant committee aren't all just from Capitola and wouldn't know what those are.
So you may recall that we rewrote the grant to include 8.72. So the consultant doing the project is very aware of what restrictions those are. There are groups that we are required per Caltrans to comment and put input in, but do not write or control what ends up in the ATP. And that includes places like county health and transportation in the county and other community bridges and other agencies that provide transportation funding. So those are people who are agencies who contribute to, and we take their input seriously because they do have a voice and a perspective of transportation in the greater county and how it reflects to Capitola, but they by no means write or approve the plan.
Right? And that's also shared with the view of what the Stockton Bridge could be, right? I mean, with some of those restrictions on how that could look or what that could be at the same time.
So currently there is no scope for that project. We will be bringing one to council at the next meeting. But right, there are no outreach committees for that because at this time it's not a project.
Okay, those are all the questions I have at this time. Thank you. And again, if your staff worked on it too, thank you to them.
The question for me is can we get more of this overview and presentation? Because it seems like it's something we've kind of been lacking. So as we move forward, we have this more often on the agenda, every 6 months. We got a lot of good information. I don't know, it was probably a lot of hard work, but just to bring it up and just so we can have more transparency, we can bring up the conversations for the connectivity.
May I ask a follow-up question, Mayor, to that? So by this presentation, do you mean something like the town hall that was held last year where it went over all the current projects? I just want to make sure I'm clear on what the request is.
I love the town hall we had. That would be excellent if we could do something like that. But just even for the council and for everybody to hear of the projects and how we're doing the connectivity. And
So you probably want from the.
I sure do. Or is there any members of the public that wish to speak?
This is a great document. Thank you. It adds a lot of insight. Now that the city has AI on their website and the website's been revamped, having a document like this that's more of a living document on the website would really help people figure out what's going on because you could search it. So I know that updating it weekly is totally unreasonable, but having it updated quarterly and having it be a living document on the website would make it a lot easier for people to access that information. And then my other ask would be for city staff to kind of work with their AI, because there is some search engine optimization with AI, some GEO that needs to be done. So when you do put presentations like this up, think like a person that's just trying to find out information on the Cliff Drive Resiliency Project, type that in, see what comes up, and make sure that the information is populating that you want to populate, and make sure that, the AI isn't providing hallucinations for the community. But it's great. And I think that this could be a beautiful tool for people to understand what's happening. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll take it back if there's any extra comments.
I just have one. So my goal is not to stop anything from happening because I think we want things happening. I think it's real clear that there are a lot of places in town where we need to add more bike lanes. We need to have better pedestrian access. We need to make those things work. My goal is to come up with information so the community can look at it and we can get behind even doing pieces of projects if we can say, okay, this all fits together here. And so, you know, my goal of trying to have some sort of plan is so, you know, people can look at it and say, oh, so that's what you're planning on doing in the future. That's how this is going to tie together. That's how this is going to work. And I think until we have that, we're going to constantly be, well, why are you doing this little piece or that piece, or how do they fit together? How does it work? So, you know, as people have said, you know, I think this is great information. I think for me, we could just go one step further so there would be something that the public could look at and it would be easy for them to see this is where we're trying to get to. So that's my final comment.
You say more like a map of the city?
I think there needs to be something that people can look at and see and say, you know, we're going to plan to have bike trails through the mall. We're going to plan to have bike trails on Claire's. We're going to plan to go on 38th Avenue. We're going to be, you know, something where the average person without a whole lot of, you know, studying can figure out and see and understand it. And so I'm repeating myself, but that's where I get confused because then they say, well, the ATP plan's going to do that, but we're doing things before we have the ATP plan, and we've got to have a plan. I mean, seems to me we're smart enough people that we would have a plan. But
I think this is our very first ATP, right? So we will have a plan after this process is complete, which I'm really excited about. And this is our very first time we'll have a holistic kind of map drawn out that is informed by our community after a lot of outreach and surveys, where we will see this holistic kind of map throughout our city. And even if we don't have the funding for it today, hopefully we'll be able to piecemeal it together. And I think, you know, it sounds like funding is the big limiting step. In a perfect world, if we had all the money we had, if we had a billionaire in Capitola, we would be able to do everything we want at one time. But that is not the reality. And there are a lot of constraints in terms of grant funding, as our director Khan knows. So I'm really impressed with all you've done. I know that was a lot of work on your end, but this was very informative to be able to see everything and understand how it all connects or not connect. And just, you know, I'm just so grateful for all of your work and all of your leadership. And I don't know how you kept all of this in your head. So I'm really impressed, and thank you for your work.
Any other comments?
Obviously, it was a lot of work. Thank you for doing it. I just look forward to more.
Great. I appreciate it. Lots of hard work on your end, so I think that's great. And just if we can make it accessible from the website or however we can make this more easily viewed, that would be amazing. But thank you for this report.
Is the map, is there a possibility that what Councilmember Westman is asking, that you could come up with some iteration of what that could look like, or is that something that's possible?
The comprehensive map.
A map of just showing how some of these things hypothetically would connect, or something that we can use as a document to share?
I can do that for our current projects and some of the planning documents that we have. I will say something like the ADA transition plan would be a black map. Yes, and the ATP, obviously, for specifically bike and ped projects, that's part of that project, is to create that visual.
hypothetical would be like in a year from now, we could have a map ATP would be done, your map that you might work on, and then they come together, that there'd be a document that somebody just use Tori's AI and just bring it up online and see it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I have one last announcement. August 25th, we are hosting the reimagined Jade Street that encompasses the Treasure Cove, all universally accessible playground along with our community center. The unveiling will be at noon, so all are welcome to attend. And we've gotten a little sneak peek and it's beautiful, so I encourage anybody to come out that is available. Last item, item 10, adjournment. Take care of yourselves and others. Thank you, everybody, for all your support.
It will be open prior to the